The mechanic's hands were still grease-stained when he realized the broken-down CEO wasn't just a stranger. She was the woman who vanished from his life 15 years ago, the one he never stopped searching for. But she didn't recognize him. Not his face, not his voice, not the man who once saved her on a cold autumn night outside a university library. Daniel Reed had spent 15 years believing Elena Martinez was gone forever. Now she stood before him as Lena Whitmore, untouchable and brilliant, offering money for a simple roadside repair. And he had exactly one choice: walk away again or risk everything he'd built to protect his daughter and his broken heart. Before we dive into this story of second chances and impossible reunions, I want to invite you to stay with me until the very end. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. The mountain highway stretched empty in both directions, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through pine forests that seemed to swallow sound itself. It was the kind of road where you could drive for 30 minutes without seeing another soul, where cell service died miles back, and where breaking down meant you were truly alone, unless someone stopped. Daniel Reed's pickup truck rounded the bend at exactly 4:47 p.m., the autumn sun already sinking behind the ridgeline, casting long shadows across the pavement. He'd taken this route 1,000 times. It shaved 15 minutes off the drive from Miller's Hardware back to Riverside, the small town where he'd lived his entire life. 15 minutes meant he could pick up Mia from after-school care before they charged the late fee. 15 minutes meant he could start dinner before she got too hungry and cranky. 15 minutes mattered when you were doing it all alone. He almost didn't see the car. It was pulled halfway onto the narrow shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly in the fading light. A Mercedes S-Class, gunmetal gray, so out of place on this rural highway, it might as well have been a spaceship. Daniel's foot moved to the brake before his brain fully processed what he was seeing. He could keep going. He was already running late. Mia would be waiting. But his mother's voice echoed in his head, the way it still did 3 years after her death. You stop for people, Danny. Always. Because someday you might be the one who needs stopping for. Daniel pulled over, gravel crunching under his tires. The woman stood beside the Mercedes with her phone raised toward the sky, arm extended like she was trying to summon a signal through sheer willpower. She wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Daniel made in a month, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Even from a distance, she carried herself with the kind of composure that came from boardrooms and power lunches, not broken-down cars on isolated highways. Daniel grabbed his toolbox from the truck bed, he never went anywhere without it, and approached slowly, making sure she could see him coming. Stranded women on lonely roads had every right to be cautious. "Car trouble?" he called out, keeping his distance. She turned, and for a fraction of a second, something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition, though that didn't make sense. Daniel had never seen this woman before in his life. "The engine just died," she said, her voice steady despite the situation. "No warning. It was running fine, and then nothing." She gestured at the phone in her hand with a rueful smile. "And apparently, this section of highway exists in a dead zone." "Yeah, service is pretty much non-existent until you get closer to town." Daniel set his toolbox down. "Mind if I take a look?" "Please." She stepped aside, watching him with an intensity that made him suddenly aware of his grease-stained work shirt and worn jeans. "I'm Lena, by the way." "Lena Whitmore." "Daniel Reed." He extended his hand, then thought better of it, showing her his oil-stained palm. "Sorry, occupational hazard." "You're a mechanic?" The question came too quickly, too sharp with interest. "Small operation, just me mostly." He moved to the driver's side. "You mind popping the hood?" She did, and Daniel lifted it, immediately hit with that distinct smell of an overheated engine. He'd diagnosed hundreds of these over the years. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking connections, testing components, reading the story the engine told. "Alternator belt," he said after 2 minutes. "Snapped clean through. That's why everything just died on you. No power to keep the battery charged while you're driving. Can it be fixed?" Lena had moved closer, standing just behind his right shoulder. "Or do I need to call a tow truck?" When I can get signal, I mean. I can replace it, Daniel said, already pulling a spare belt from his toolbox. He kept a variety of them. You never knew what you'd need in a small town where the nearest auto parts store was 40 minutes away. This'll get you where you're going. You'll want to have your regular mechanic replace it with the proper part for your model, but this'll hold. He worked in silence, aware of her watching. Most people pulled out their phones or sat in their cars when he fixed things, but Lena Whitmore stood there, observing every movement like she was memorizing it. You just carry spare parts around? She asked. Habit. Daniel didn't look up, focused on threading the belt properly. In a town like Riverside, Chiphukbo takes about 2 hours to show up, sometimes longer. If I can fix something, I do. Riverside. That's the town about 20 minutes south of here. 25, depending on traffic, though there's rarely traffic. He tightened the final connection and straightened, wiping his hands on the rag he kept in his back pocket. Try starting it now. Lena slid into the driver's seat, and the Mercedes purred to life immediately, all its dashboard lights glowing with renewed vigor. Relief washed over her face, genuine and unguarded in a way that made her suddenly seem younger. You're a lifesaver, she said, stepping out of the car. Seriously. I was starting to imagine spending the night out here. She reached for her purse, pulling out a wallet. What do I owe you? Nothing. Daniel was already closing his toolbox. I can't just... You took time out of your day, used your parts. It's a $15 belt in 10 minutes. He met her eyes, struck by how dark they were, almost black in the dimming light. Something about them nagged at him, like a song he couldn't quite remember. I'm not going to charge you for helping. Lena stared at him for a long moment, and that strange intensity returned to her gaze. She was studying him, Daniel realized, really looking at him in a way that made him want to step back and lean closer at the same time. At least let me buy you dinner, she said. There must be a restaurant in Riverside where I can say thank you properly. I appreciate it, but I need to get home to my daughter. Daniel picked up his toolbox. You should be all set to wherever you're headed. Just remember to get that belt replaced with the right part. He was turning away when she spoke again. Your daughter. How old? The question stopped him. It was personal, the kind of thing strangers didn't usually ask, but something in her tone made it feel less intrusive and more wistful. 7, Daniel said. Her name's Mia. That's a beautiful name. Lena's expression softened. You're lucky. Yeah. He thought of Mia's gap-toothed smile, the way she still insisted he check for monsters under her bed, even though she claimed she was too old for such things. I really am. Daniel Reed, Lena said slowly, like she was testing the weight of each syllable. Thank you, truly. Just passing along the kindness. He offered a small wave. Drive safe, Ms. Whitmore. He walked back to his truck, loaded his toolbox, and pulled back onto the highway without looking back. In his rearview mirror, he saw her standing beside her Mercedes, perfectly still, watching his truck disappear around the bend. What Daniel didn't see was the way her hand rose to her mouth, or how her carefully maintained composure finally cracked. He didn't see her lean against her car, breathing hard like she'd just run a marathon. He didn't see the tears that gathered in her eyes before she blinked them away, or hear the name she whispered into the empty mountain air. Danny. What? The after-school care facility was in the basement of Riverside Elementary, a cheerful space full of beanbags and board games where working parents could leave their kids until 6 p.m. Daniel walked in at 5:20, earning a relieved smile from Mrs. Chen, the woman who ran the program. Cutting it close, Daniel, she said, but there was no judgment in her tone. Mrs. Chen had known him since he was Mia's age. She'd taught his mother before him. Car trouble on Route 17, he explained. Someone needed help. Of course they did. Mrs. Chen shook her head fondly. You're just like Sarah, you know that? She couldn't pass by anyone who needed help either. Daniel's throat tightened at the mention of his mother. 3 years, and some days the grief still hit like a fresh wound. Daddy? Mia launched herself from a pile of cushions, her dark braids flying, backpack forgotten on the floor. She crashed into his legs with the full force of 7 years old. You're here. Of course I'm here. He scooped her up despite his protesting back. She was getting too big for this, but neither of them wanted to admit it. Did you think I'd forget you? Nope. Mia wrapped her arms around his neck. But Emma said her dad forgot her once because he had a important meeting, so I just thought maybe, no meeting's more important than you, Bug. Daniel set her down gently. Grab your stuff. We need to get home and make dinner. Can we have pancakes? Pancakes are breakfast food. You said pancakes are anytime food when I was sad about Grandma. She had him there. Daniel ruffled her hair. Pancakes it is. The drive home took them through downtown Riverside, if you could call it that. Main Street stretched for exactly 4 blocks, featuring Joe's Diner, the hardware store where Daniel picked up odd jobs, Linda's Grocery, the public library, and a handful of other small businesses that had been there since before Daniel was born. Their apartment was above Reed's Auto Repair, the shop his father had opened 40 years ago, and Daniel had inherited at 23 when everything in his life had fallen apart at once. The shop occupied the ground floor of an old brick building that had probably been something else before it became a garage. The apartment upstairs wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that barely fit a table, a living room that doubled as Mia's play space, but the rent was free since Daniel owned the building, and it was theirs. Homework first, Daniel said as they climbed the narrow stairs. Then pancakes. But Daddy, but nothing, that's the rule. Mia groaned with the dramatic suffering only a 7-year-old could muster, but plopped herself at the kitchen table with her workbook. Daniel washed the grease from his hands, watching her through the doorway as she chewed on her pencil, brow furrowed in concentration. This was his life. This was everything that mattered. He'd built it carefully over the past 7 years, piece by piece, after everything else had fallen apart. After he'd left college, after his mother got sick, after Mia's mother, Jessica, had decided that small-town life and single motherhood weren't what she signed up for and left when Mia was 18 months old, after he'd learned that some dreams died so other ones could live. Daniel pulled out the pancake mix, cracked eggs, measured milk with practiced efficiency. This was a different kind of skill than fixing engines, but he'd gotten good at it. He'd had to. Daddy? Mia's voice drifted from the table. Do you ever get lonely? The question hit him sideways. Where'd that come from, Bug? Emma's dad has a girlfriend now. She came to pick Emma up today, and Emma says she's nice but weird because she's not her mom. Mia looked up from her homework. Do you want a girlfriend? Daniel flipped a pancake, buying time. I've got you. That's all I need. But when I'm at school, you're alone. I'm working. That's different from alone. Miss Chen says you should go on dates. Miss Chen needs to mind her business. But Daniel smiled despite himself. And you need to finish problem number 4. Mia returned to her homework, but the question lingered in the air between them. The truth was, Daniel hadn't been on a date in 7 years. Hadn't wanted to. Hadn't had time to. Hadn't met anyone who made him want to try. There had only been one person who'd ever made his heart race, who'd made him believe in the kind of love that songs and movies promised. Elena Martinez, with her brilliant smile and fierce determination, who'd sat beside him in the university library studying for finals while he worked the night security shift to pay tuition. Elena, who'd walked with him on cold autumn nights, talking about dreams and futures and all the things they'd do when they graduated. Elena, who'd disappeared without a word 15 years ago. He'd searched for her. God, how he'd searched. But Elena Martinez had vanished like smoke, and eventually Daniel had been forced to accept that whatever they'd had, whatever he'd thought they had, hadn't meant to her what it meant to him. The pancakes were perfect golden brown when he plated them. Mia abandoned her homework immediately, drowning her stack in syrup with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been promised breakfast for dinner. These are the best, she declared through a mouthful. Better than Joe's Diner. Don't let Joe hear you say that. Daniel sat across from her with his own modest stack. He'll ban us for life. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that came from being each other's primary company. Daniel watched his daughter, saw his mother's eyes in her face, saw Jessica's stubborn chin, saw some indefinable thing that was purely Mia, fierce and funny and so full of love it sometimes scared him. I saw a fancy car today, Mia said suddenly. When Miss Chen's husband dropped off their granddaughter, it was really shiny, like a space car. A Mercedes, probably. Did it look expensive? Super expensive. Mia's eyes went wide. Do you think the person who drives it is rich? Daniel thought of Lena Whitmore, standing on that highway shoulder in her perfect suit, offering him money for a simple kindness. Probably. Would you want to be rich, Daddy? I am rich, Bug. He reached across the table to tap her nose, leaving a tiny smudge of syrup. I've got you, haven't I? That's not the same. It's better. Mia considered this, her 7-year-old brain working through the logic. I guess if you were rich, you'd be busy all the time like Emma's dad. And then who would make me pancakes for dinner? Exactly. Daniel stood to clear the plates. Now, homework finished? Almost. Then finish it while I do dishes, and then we can watch 1 episode of your show before bed. 2 episodes? 1.
1.5, Daniel laughed. You drive a hard bargain, Miss Reed. 1 full episode, and if you brush your teeth without being asked, we'll read an extra chapter tonight. Deal! Mia scampered back to the table, suddenly motivated. Daniel ran hot water in the sink, squirted soap, let his hands work through the familiar routine of washing and rinsing and drying. Through the kitchen window, he could see Main Street settling into evening, the streetlights flickering on one by one, the last few customers leaving Joe's diner. This was his world, small and simple and safe. So why couldn't he stop thinking about a stranger's dark eyes on a mountain highway?
50 miles away, in a hotel suite that cost more per night than Daniel made in a week, Lena Whitmore sat at the desk with her laptop open, her fingers poised over the keyboard, unable to type. She'd checked into the Riverside Inn, the only hotel in town, a converted Victorian mansion that tried very hard to be charming, under the pretense of needing a place to stay while her assistant arranged for a proper alternator belt replacement in the morning. It was a reasonable excuse, a logical excuse. It was also a complete lie. Lena could have driven the 25 minutes back to the city where her actual hotel, a 5-star accommodation befitting a CEO, waited. She could have called her assistant and had a team of mechanics dispatched within the hour. She could have done 100 different things that didn't involve checking into a small-town inn with questionable Wi-Fi and floral wallpaper. Instead, she'd done the one thing she knew she shouldn't. She'd searched for him. Daniel Reed, Riverside. The results were sparse but telling. Reed's Auto Repair. Honest work, fair prices, family-owned since 1985. A Facebook page that hadn't been updated in months, showing a modest garage bay with 1 car lifted on the hydraulic rack. A handful of glowing reviews on Google. Daniel fixed my transmission for half what the dealership quoted. Trustworthy and kind. Went above and beyond for my elderly mother. One photo showed him in his garage, wearing the same kind of work shirt she'd seen today, holding a wrench and offering the camera a small, genuine smile. It was dated 3 years ago. Lena's fingers traced the screen, hovering over his face. 15 years. She'd looked for him for 15 years. After that night, the night that changed everything, she'd tried to find Danny Reed, but he'd left the university. His student records were sealed. His phone number was disconnected. He'd vanished so completely it was like he'd never existed at all. She told herself she'd imagined the connection between them, that she'd built up a security guard who walked her to her car into something more than he was, that the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd listened to her dreams, the way he'd made her feel safe for the first time in her chaotic life, that it had all been in her head. But she'd never forgotten his face, never stopped seeing his quiet smile in her dreams, never stopped wondering where Danny Reed had gone and why he'd left without saying goodbye. And today, on a random stretch of highway, covered in grease and speaking with that same gentle directness she remembered, he'd stood 3 feet away from her, and he hadn't recognized her at all. Lena closed the laptop, moving to the window. The town of Riverside spread below, quaint and sleepy, the kind of place she'd fought so hard to escape from in her own life. Her hometown had been similar, small, suffocating, full of people who told her that girls like her didn't become CEOs of tech companies. Girls like her were lucky to escape at all. She'd proved them wrong. She'd fought and clawed her way through college while working 3 jobs, through business school on a full scholarship, through the startup years when failure seemed more likely than success. She'd built Whitmore Technologies from a garage operation into a company worth $800 million. She'd done everything she'd dreamed of telling Danny about, back when they sat in the university library and planned impossible futures. And she'd done it all alone. Because the truth was, she'd never met anyone who made her feel the way Danny Reed had. In 15 years of dating, relationships, even one almost engagement, no one had ever looked at her the way he had. Like she was someone worth knowing, not something worth acquiring. A knock on the door startled her from her thoughts.
Ms. Whitmore? A young woman's voice, tentative. I'm Emily, from the front desk. I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed for the night. Lena opened the door to find a girl who couldn't be more than 22, wearing the inn's uniform polo and an eager-to-please expression. I'm fine, thank you. Oh, good. Emily lingered. I don't mean to intrude, but Mr. Harrison, he owns the inn. He mentioned you might need a mechanic in the morning for your car. I do, actually. You should call Reed's Auto Repair. Emily pulled out her phone, already pulling up the number. Daniel's the best. He's honest, and he won't overcharge you like some of the places in the city. Plus, he's just really nice. He fixed my car last month and let me pay in installments because I'm still in community college and money's tight. Reed's Auto Repair, Lena repeated, something twisting in her chest.
Is that the only mechanic in town? Well, there's Harold's garage, but Harold's kind of grumpy and his prices are higher. Everyone goes to Daniel. Emily smiled. I can give you his card if you want. He's really good with luxury cars, too. He went to technical school before. She trailed off, seeming to catch herself. Anyway, he's great. Before what? Lena asked, too sharply. Emily shifted uncomfortably. I don't want to gossip. I'm just making conversation. Lena softened her tone, recognizing the executive intensity that sometimes crept in. I promise it won't leave this room. Well, I guess it's not really gossip since everyone knows. Emily leaned against the doorframe. Daniel was studying mechanical engineering at the State University, like 15 years ago. He was supposed to graduate, had this big future planned, but then his mom got sick, cancer, and he came home to take care of her, took over his dad's garage. His dad had passed a few years before, and it was just the two of them. Lena's throat constricted. His mother. Yeah, Sarah Reed, she was the nicest lady. Everyone loved her. She fought for like 5 years before... Emily's expression grew sad. Anyway, Daniel's been running the shop alone since she passed. Well, alone plus taking care of his daughter. He's a single dad. His ex left when Mia was a baby. Each piece of information landed like a physical blow. Daniel, had left school to care for his dying mother, had given up his degree, his future, everything they'd planned, had built a life in this small town, raising a daughter alone, fixing cars, and helping strangers on lonely highways. That's very kind of you to share, Lena managed. I'll definitely call his shop in the morning. Great, he usually opens around 8. Emily pushed off from the doorframe. Is there anything else you need? Extra towels? The Wi-Fi password is on the card by the TV. No, thank you. I'm all set. When Emily left, Lena returned to her laptop. But this time she didn't search for Daniel Reed. Instead, she opened her work email, staring at the hundreds of unread messages, the meeting requests, the quarterly reports waiting for her review. This was what she'd built. This was the life she'd chosen. But sitting in this small-town inn, knowing that the boy she'd loved, because yes, she could admit it now, she had loved him, was living a completely different life just blocks away. None of it felt like enough. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, her assistant, checking in. Hotel arranged for the car? Need me to send someone? Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could say yes. She could have her car fixed by morning, be back in the city by noon, return to her carefully constructed world where Danny Reed was a beautiful memory and nothing more. Instead, she typed, I'll handle it locally, taking a personal day tomorrow. Marcus's response was immediate. You haven't taken a personal day in 3 years. Are you feeling okay? Lena smiled despite herself. I'm fine. Just need a break. She set the phone down before Marcus could ask more questions, before she could second-guess herself. Tomorrow, she would go to Reed's Auto Repair. She would see Danny again, in his element this time. And maybe she would find the courage to tell him who she really was. Or maybe she would just get her car fixed and leave. Either way, after 15 years of wondering, she needed to know. Was the connection she remembered real?
Or had she spent half her life chasing a ghost of her own creation?
Daniel woke at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of Mia coughing in the next room. He was out of bed before his eyes were fully open, moving on instinct born of 7 years of solo parenting. Her room was dark except for the nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. Mia sat up in bed, coughing into her hands, her small frame shaking with the effort. "Hey, bug." Daniel sat on the edge of her bed, hand automatically going to her forehead. Warm, but not feverish. "You okay?" "Tickle in my throat," she rasped. "Can I have water?" He got her water, watched her drink, listened to her breathing. Just a cough, probably. The fall weather had been bringing everyone's colds around. Still, he made a mental note to keep an eye on it. "Try to sleep a bit more," he said, tucking her blanket around her shoulders. "It's still early." "Will you stay?" The question came small and sleepy. "Yeah, bug, I'll stay." Daniel sat on the floor beside her bed, his back against the wall, and listened to her breathing even out. The moonlight through her window cast soft shadows across her collection of stuffed animals, her bookshelf full of stories they'd read together, her drawings taped to the walls. Their life, small and precious and real. He must have dozed off, because the next thing he knew, actual sunlight was streaming through the window and Mia was shaking his shoulder. "Daddy, you fell asleep on my floor." Daniel groaned, his back protesting the night spent at an awkward angle. "Yeah, I did." "How's the cough?" Mia demonstrated with an exaggerated hack. "Better. Can I stay home from school?" "Nice try." He ruffled her hair. "How about this? If you're still coughing this bad at lunch, the school nurse will call me and I'll come get you." "But what if I get worse before lunch?" "Then Miss Chen will call me." Mia pouted but didn't argue further. She knew the rules. Daniel ran a tight ship by necessity. He had to be at the garage by 8, which meant Mia had to be at school by 7:30, which meant they needed to be out the door by 7:15. They moved through their morning routine with practiced efficiency. Cereal and orange juice while Daniel packed her lunch, teeth brushing while he laid out her clothes. A race to see who could get their shoes on faster. Mia won, like always. "Championship match tomorrow," she reminded him as he walked her to the crosswalk where the crossing guard waited. "For my soccer team. Can you come?" "What time?" 4 o'clock. At the park. Daniel mentally reviewed his schedule. Mrs. Patterson's oil change at 3, but he could finish that in 30 minutes if he hustled. "I'll be there." "Promise?" "Promise." Mia hugged him, quick and tight, then ran to join her friends waiting on the other side of the street. Daniel watched until she was safely inside the building, then walked the 2 blocks back to the garage. Reed's Auto Repair looked exactly like what it was. A working garage owned by someone who spent more time fixing cars than fixing the building. The exterior needed paint. The sign was hand-lettered by Daniel's father 40 years ago and hadn't been updated since. The waiting area consisted of 4 mismatched chairs and a coffee maker that was older than Daniel. But the garage bay itself was immaculate. Tools organized with military precision. The floor swept clean every night. The hydraulic lift maintained perfectly. This was his father's legacy and his livelihood. Daniel treated it with the respect it deserved. He just finished his first coffee when the bell above the door chimed. Daniel looked up from the work order he was reviewing, expecting to see Harold Wilson coming to borrow a socket wrench like he did every other Tuesday. Instead, Lena Whitmore stood in his waiting area, looking even more out of place than she had on the highway. She'd traded the business suit for dark jeans and a cream sweater, but she still radiated a polish that didn't belong in his grease-stained world. "Ms. Whitmore?" Daniel set down his coffee, caught completely off guard. "Is the car giving you trouble?" "Not exactly." She stepped further inside, looking around the garage with genuine interest. "I wanted to get the alternator belt properly replaced, like you suggested. And someone at my hotel recommended your shop." "Right, of course." Daniel mentally shifted gears, moving from the surprise of seeing her to the practical matter at hand. "I can definitely take care of that for you. Did you drive the car here?" "It's parked outside." "Great. Let me get some information from you and I can have it done this morning." He pulled out his standard intake form and they went through the basics. Make, model, year, VIN number. Lena rattled off the information with the precision of someone used to dealing with details. Okay, Daniel said, setting down his pen. Give me about an hour, hour and a half. There's a diner down the street, Joe's, if you want to grab breakfast while you wait, or the library's a block over if you prefer. Actually, I was hoping I could watch. At his surprised look, she continued, I like understanding how things work, and I've never actually seen a car repair up close. Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to customers hanging around the garage. Most people were happy to disappear until their car was ready. But something in Lena's expression, an almost wistful curiosity, made him nod. Sure. Just stay clear of the lift, and if I ask you to step back, step back. Deal. He got her car up on the lift, and as he worked, he could feel her watching him with that same intensity from yesterday. It should have been distracting, but instead Daniel found himself explaining what he was doing, the same way he explained things to Mia when she asked about the garage. The alternator is this component here, he said, pointing. It charges your battery while the engine runs. The belt connects it to the engine's crankshaft. Basically, when your engine turns, the belt turns, which spins the alternator. When the belt snaps, like yours did, the alternator stops working and your battery drains fast. So the belt is crucial. Very. It's a wear item, which means it needs regular replacement. Most people forget about it until it fails. He began removing the temporary belt he'd installed yesterday. Your car should have had it replaced at 60,000 miles. I probably did, and then forgot. Lena moved closer, watching his hands as he worked. I'm not very attentive to my car. Honestly, I know I should be. That's what mechanics are for. Daniel fit the new belt into place, checking the tension with practiced precision. Though it's good to at least know the basics. When's the last time you checked your tire pressure? I don't know how to check my tire pressure. Really? He glanced at her, surprised. She seemed like someone who'd know everything. Really? Lena smiled, self-deprecating. I can build a business model, negotiate contracts, code in 3 languages, but cars are a complete blind spot. I've always just paid people to handle them. There was something endearing about that admission, coming from someone so clearly competent in every other way. Daniel finished securing the belt and lowered the lift. Tell you what, he heard himself say, when I'm done here, I'll show you how to check the tire pressure. Take 5 minutes, and it might save you from getting stranded again. I'd like that. 20 minutes later, Daniel was kneeling beside her front tire, showing Lena how to use a pressure gauge. She crouched beside him, leaning in to see, and he caught a hint of her perfume, something subtle and expensive that contrasted sharply with the smell of motor oil and rubber. You push it on firm, like this, he demonstrated. When you hear the hiss stop, you read the number here. Should match what's listed on the sticker inside your driver's door. 35 psi, Lena read, and this one is 34, a little low but not dangerous. I'll top it off for you. As he worked, filling each tire to the proper pressure, Lena asked questions. Real questions, not the polite small talk people usually made. She wanted to know why tire pressure mattered, how often to check it, what the signs of a problem were. You're a good teacher, she said when he finished. Patient. I've had practice. My daughter asks about 1 million questions a day. He replaced the air compressor, wiping his hands. Your car's all set. I'll write up your invoice. Back in the office, Daniel calculated the parts and labor, writing it out on his standard form. When he showed her the total, Lena didn't even blink at the number, which was fair, considering she drove a Mercedes that probably cost $80,000. But as she pulled out her credit card, she paused. Daniel, she said slowly, can I ask you something? Sure. Did you ever go to Harrison State University? The question came from nowhere, hitting him like a physical blow. Daniel's hand stilled on the receipt. I did. For 2 years. Why? Lena's dark eyes searched his face, and in them Daniel saw something he couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. Or fear. What years? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Started in fall of 2009. Left in spring of 2011. The memories were still sharp-edged even after all this time. My mother got sick. I came home to help with her care. 2009 and 2010.
Lena's hands were trembling slightly. Did you work security at the library? The world tilted sideways. Daniel stared at her, really looked at her for the first time since yesterday. The shape of her face, the way she held herself, those impossibly dark eyes that had haunted his dreams for 15 years. Elena? The name came out broken, disbelieving. Elena Martinez? She nodded, and suddenly he could see her, the 20-year-old girl who'd stayed late in the library, who'd walked with him on cold nights, who'd disappeared without a trace. The years melted away, and there she was, the first person he'd ever loved. My God! Daniel sank into his desk chair, legs suddenly unsteady. I looked for you. After that night, after everything, I looked everywhere. I looked for you too. Tears gathered in Lena's eyes, though she didn't let them fall. Danny, I've been looking for 15 years.
The garage seemed to shrink around them, the world narrowing to just this moment, this impossible reunion. Daniel's mind raced through 1,000 questions, 1,000 things he wanted to say, but all that came out was, "Why didn't you tell me yesterday? When I was fixing your car, you knew who I was, and you didn't say anything." I wasn't sure you'd remember me. Lena's voice cracked slightly. Or want to remember. It's been so long, and you have a whole life here, and I thought, I don't know what I thought. Not remember you? Daniel stood moving around the desk without thinking, needing to close the distance between them. Elena, I searched for you for years. I went back to campus, called every Martinez in the phone book, checked social media when that became a thing. You just vanished. I changed my name, she said quietly, after graduation. Whitmore was my mother's maiden name. I wanted a fresh start, and she trailed off, looking away. It's complicated. 15 years. Daniel couldn't stop staring at her, cataloging the ways she'd changed and stayed the same. You became a CEO, built a whole company. You became a father, built a whole life. They stood there in the small office, the magnitude of lost time pressing down on them. Daniel felt like he was drowning in memories. Late nights in the library, walking Elena to her dorm, the way she'd looked at him like he mattered, like he was someone worth knowing despite being just a security guard paying his way through school. And then, that last night, the one that changed everything. Elena. Lena, she corrected gently. I go by Lena now. Lena. The name felt strange on his tongue. What are you doing here? In Riverside, I mean. It can't be coincidence. I was visiting a potential acquisition site upstate, the car breaking down on that particular highway. She met his eyes. That part was actually coincidence. But coming to your shop, asking about your past, that was deliberate. I needed to know if you were really Danny Reed, if I'd really found you after all this time. The bell above the door chimed. Daniel turned to see Mrs. Patterson entering with her keys, right on schedule for her oil change. Morning, Daniel, she called cheerfully. Oh, I didn't know you had another customer. I can come back. No, it's fine, Mrs. Patterson. Daniel forced himself back into professional mode, even though his heart was racing. I'm just finishing up here. He turned back to Lena, lowering his voice. I need to work. This is my 3:00 appointment, and then I have to get to my daughter's soccer game at 4. Of course. Lena grabbed her purse, but hesitated at the door. Daniel, could we talk? Really talk? Maybe dinner or coffee or... She stopped, seeming to realize she was rambling. I'm staying at the Riverside Inn, room 7. If you want to talk, I'll be there. Then she was gone, the bell chiming behind her, leaving Daniel standing in his garage with Mrs. Patterson's expectant face and a world that had just turned completely upside down. You okay, Daniel? Mrs. Patterson asked, concerned. You look like you've seen a ghost. Yeah, Daniel said faintly, watching through the window as Lena's Mercedes pulled away. Something like that. He got through Mrs. Patterson's oil change on autopilot, his hands performing the familiar tasks while his mind spun in circles. Elena Martinez was alive. She'd become Lena Whitmore. She'd been looking for him the same way he'd looked for her, and she was staying at the Riverside Inn, waiting to see if he'd show up. Daniel finished the oil change, locked up the garage, and drove to Mia's soccer game with his head still reeling. He stood on the sidelines with the other parents, cheering when appropriate, but he barely saw the game. All he could see was a 20-year-old girl in a library and a CEO in his garage, and the impossible bridge between them. Mia's team won 3-2. She scored one of the goals and was buzzing with excitement when she ran to him afterward. "Did you see, Daddy? Did you see my goal?" "I saw, Bug. You were amazing." He hugged her, grounding himself in the reality of her small body, the grass stains on her uniform, the way her hair had escaped its ponytail. This was real. This was his life. But as they drove home, as he made dinner and supervised homework and read bedtime stories, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Lena's dark eyes, her trembling hands, the way she'd said his name. Danny. No one had called him that in 15 years. When Mia finally fell asleep at 8:30, Daniel sat on the couch in their small living room and stared at his phone. The Riverside Inn's number was easy to find. Room 7, she'd said. He could call. He could go over there right now. Or he could do nothing. He could let Lena, drive back to her CEO life tomorrow and leave his carefully constructed world intact. But he'd spent 15 years wondering what happened to her, wondering if he'd imagined what they had, wondering if he'd ever find her again. And now she was here, in his town, waiting. Daniel picked up his phone. His hands were shaking as he dialed. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hello?" Lena's voice came through slightly breathless, like she'd run to answer. Daniel's throat went dry. He'd rehearsed a dozen opening lines in the 30 seconds it took to dial, and now every single one evaporated. "It's Daniel," he finally managed. "Daniel Reed. I mean, you know who. I just finished putting my daughter to bed, and I thought, I'm glad you called." The relief in her voice was palpable. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either." He stood up, too restless to sit, and moved to the window overlooking Main Street. The town was settling into its usual sleepy evening, the diner's neon sign flickering, a few cars passing. I don't even know what this is. Surreal, Lena offered. Overwhelming. Impossible. All of those. Daniel pressed his forehead against the cool glass. 15 years, Elena. I mean, Lena. Sorry, You can call me Elena. Her voice softened. You're the only person who ever did. The intimacy of that statement hit him hard. Why did you change it? A pause, long enough that Daniel thought the call might have dropped. Then, can we talk in person? I know it's late and you have your daughter, but I'm not leaving tomorrow. I cleared my schedule. We could meet for coffee or breakfast, or Mia has school tomorrow. I need to be at the garage by 8. Daniel ran through his mental calendar, trying to find space in a life that had no room for complications. But I close for lunch at noon. There's a park near the library where we could talk. It's usually empty midday. I'll be there at noon. Okay. Daniel's heart was hammering. Okay. I'll see you then. He hung up before he could change his mind, before the reality of what he'd just agreed to could sink in too deeply. Then he stood at the window for a long time, watching his town and wondering how something that looked so unchanged could suddenly feel so different. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Daniel lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind cycling through memories he'd locked away years ago. Elena studying in the library, her brow furrowed in concentration. Elena laughing at something he said, her whole face lighting up. Elena walking beside him on cold October nights, close enough that their hands almost touched. And then that last night, the one he'd replayed 1,000 times. It had been late October, just after midnight. Daniel was finishing his security rounds when he'd heard raised voices near the north entrance. He'd found Elena backing away from a guy Daniel vaguely recognized from campus. Football player, business major, someone who drove a BMW his parents bought him. The guy had been drunk, aggressive, not taking no for an answer. Daniel had stepped between them, calm but unmovable, and the guy had eventually stumbled away with threats about getting Daniel fired. Elena had been shaking. Daniel had walked her all the way back to her dorm, and they'd stood outside for 2 hours talking. She'd told him about growing up poor, about fighting for her scholarship, about people who thought she didn't belong at the university. He'd told her about his dad dying when he was 16, about working his way through school, about dreams of becoming an engineer, and somewhere in those 2 hours, something had shifted between them. The careful friendship they'd been building for months had become something more, something electric and terrifying and real. "Thank you," Elena had said, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Not just for tonight, for seeing me, really seeing me." "I always see you," Daniel had replied, and meant it with his whole heart. She'd kissed him then, soft and brief and perfect. When she pulled away, her eyes had been bright with tears. "I have to tell you something," she'd said, "about my family, about where I come from. I'm not what you think." "Tomorrow," Daniel had promised, not wanting the night to end on something heavy. "Tell me tomorrow. I'm off work at 6. We can get dinner." She'd nodded, kissed him once more, and disappeared into her dorm. Daniel had never seen her again. He'd shown up at the library the next day, but she wasn't there. He'd gone to her dorm, but her roommate said she'd moved out suddenly. Family emergency. No forwarding address. He'd checked with the registrar's office, but they wouldn't give him information. He'd searched everywhere, asked everyone, and found nothing but dead ends and closed doors. Elena Martinez had vanished like smoke. For months, Daniel had wondered what he'd done wrong. What he'd said or didn't say. Whether the kiss had been a mistake. Whether she'd regretted everything in the light of day. Then his mother had gotten her diagnosis, and Daniel's life had imploded in a different way. He'd left school, come home to Riverside, and tried to bury the ghost of Elena Martinez under the weight of real-world responsibilities. But he'd never forgotten her, never stopped wondering. And now she was here, solid and real, and Daniel had no idea what to do with that. Morning came too early. Mia's cough had worsened overnight, and Daniel spent 20 minutes convincing her that yes, she still had to go to school, and no, a slight cough was not grounds for a sick day. "But what if I get worse?" she wheezed dramatically. "Then the nurse will call me, and I'll come get you." Daniel handed her the inhaler her pediatrician had prescribed for moments like this. 2 puffs, like we practiced. Mia complied, then gave him her best suffering child expression. "If I die at school, it's your fault." "If you die at school, I'll feel terrible." Daniel kissed her forehead. "But you're not going to die. You're going to have a normal Tuesday, and I'm going to pick you up at 3:30. The walk to school was slower than usual, Mia dragging her feet and milking her symptoms for maximum sympathy. Daniel let her, his mind already jumping ahead to noon, to the park, to Elena waiting there. "Daddy, you're being weird," Mia announced halfway to school. "What do you mean?" "You keep staring at nothing, and you forgot to make my lunch." Daniel's stomach dropped. "I forgot. I made it myself." Mia pulled her lunchbox from her backpack triumphantly. Peanut butter and jelly. "And I took an apple from the fruit bowl. And I packed crackers." "Bug, you're 7. You shouldn't have to." "I'm almost 8, Mia corrected. "And you were being spacey." "What's wrong?" Daniel crouched down to her level on the sidewalk, meeting her concerned eyes. "Nothing's wrong. I just have a lot on my mind with work stuff." "Is the garage okay? Are we running out of money?" "No, Bug. Nothing like that." He tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I promise, everything's fine. I'm just a little distracted." Mia studied him with the unnerving perception children sometimes had. "You look like you did when Grandma was sick, all worried and sad." The observation cut deep. "I'm not sad, just thinking about old stuff." "What kind of old stuff?" "Grown-up old stuff." Daniel stood, taking her hand. "Come on, or you'll be late." At the crosswalk, Mia hugged him extra tight before running off. Daniel watched her go, guilt settling in his chest. He was lying to his daughter, not directly, but by omission, and Mia deserved better than a distracted father who forgot to make her lunch. The morning at the garage crawled by with agonizing slowness. Daniel had 2 oil changes and a brake job scheduled, simple maintenance work he could do in his sleep, which was good because his mind was definitely not on the work. At 11:45, he closed the garage bay, locked the front door, and walked the 3 blocks to Riverside Park. It was a modest space, a playground, some benches, a walking path that circled a small pond where ducks congregated in summer. This time of year, it was mostly empty, except for the occasional retiree walking a dog. Lena was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the pond. She'd dressed down again, jeans, a simple blue sweater, minimal makeup, but she still carried that indefinable quality of someone who existed in a different world than Riverside. Daniel could see it in her posture, the way she held her phone, the expensive watch on her wrist that probably cost more than his truck. She looked up as he approached, and the smile that crossed her face was pure Elena, genuine and a little uncertain. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Daniel sat down beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Thanks for waiting." "I was early." Lena set her phone aside. "I've been sitting here trying to figure out where to start. The beginning might be good." The beginning. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Okay, the beginning is that I lied to you 15 years ago. About everything." Daniel's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "My name wasn't Elena Martinez. It was Elena Maria Martinez Vega." Lena stared at the pond, not meeting his eyes. "My father is Ramon Vega. Does that name mean anything to you?" "Should it?" "He's a real estate developer, owns half the commercial property in 3 states, worth about $2 billion. Lena's voice was flat, reciting facts. "I was his only child, the daughter he paraded at charity galas and used for photo opportunities. The perfect little princess in the family empire." Daniel tried to process this. "You told me you were on scholarship, that you worked 3 jobs to afford school." "I was on scholarship. I did work 3 jobs." Now Lena looked at him, and her eyes were fierce. "When I turned 18, I told my father I wanted to study computer science and business. He told me women didn't need degrees, just good marriages, so I left." "You just left?" "I ran." Lena's hands twisted together in her lap. "I took my mother's maiden name, applied to Harrison State under false pretenses, and cut all ties with my family. My father's people tried to find me for months, but I was good at hiding. I worked every job I could find, lived in the cheapest dorm, and pretended to be someone else entirely." "Elena Martinez, the scholarship student," Daniel said slowly. "Elena Martinez, the girl who finally got to choose her own life." Lena's voice cracked slightly. "And then I met you, and for the first time since leaving, I felt like I could actually be that person. Not the runaway daughter, not the fake identity, just me." Daniel's mind was reeling. "That night, outside your dorm, you said you needed to tell me something. About who I really was, where I came from." Lena wiped her eyes quickly. "I was going to tell you everything the next day, but that night after we said goodbye, I went back to my room and found my father's security team waiting." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "They found you." "Someone on campus recognized me from a charity event. My father had people on me within hours." Lena's voice was steady now, but Daniel could hear the old pain underneath. "They gave me a choice. Come home voluntarily, or he'd pull strings to have me expelled for falsifying my application. Either way, my scholarship life was over." "So you left?" "He had me on a plane by morning. Wouldn't let me take anything except the clothes I was wearing. Confiscated my phone. I tried to call you from the airport, but his people stopped me." Lena turned to face him fully. "For 6 months, he kept me under watch. No phone, no internet, no contact with anyone from school. He thought he could break me. Thought I'd eventually give in and marry whoever he picked out. But you didn't. On my 19th birthday, I made a deal with him. I joined the family business, played the dutiful daughter, but only if he paid for me to finish my degree online. He agreed, thinking I'd be stuck in his world forever." Lena smiled, sharp and satisfied. "I spent 4 years learning everything about his business. Then I took everything I'd learned, everything I'd built, and I left again. This time with lawyers and contracts he couldn't break." "Whitmore Technologies," Daniel said. "Built from scratch with money I'd carefully siphoned from my trust fund and business investments he didn't know I was making." Lena's pride was evident. "He tried to sue me, tried to claim I'd stolen his intellectual property. But I'd been careful. Everything was mine, legally and completely." "And your relationship with him now?" "Non-existent. He disowned me 5 years ago." Lena said it matter-of-factly, like it was old news. "Best thing that ever happened to me, honestly." They sat in silence for a moment. the weight of 15 years of secrets settling between them. Daniel tried to reconcile this story with the girl he'd known, the one who'd seemed so genuine, so real. "You never tried to contact me?" he finally asked. "After you got away from him?" "I tried." Lena's voice broke. "Danny, I tried so hard, but you'd left school. Your phone was disconnected. I couldn't find any trace of you. I hired a private investigator 2 years later and they found nothing. It was like you'd disappeared too." "My mom," Daniel said quietly. "She got diagnosed right after you left. Stage 3 cancer. I dropped out to come home and help care for her." "I know that now. Emily at the inn told me last night." Lena reached out, then seemed to think better of it, pulling her hand back. "I'm so sorry about your mother, about everything you went through. And I'm sorry about your father, about what he did to you." "We both lost something that year," Lena said. "Each other, but also the futures we thought we'd have." Daniel thought about the plans they'd made in late-night library conversations. His engineering degree, her computer science program, the startup they'd joked about building together someday. All of it derailed by sick parents and controlling fathers and bad timing. "I looked for you too," he admitted. "Even after I came home, even while taking care of my mom, I kept searching. Every Elena Martinez I could find online. Every social media profile. I must have sent 100 messages to different women with your name. But I wasn't Elena Martinez anymore." "No." Daniel met her eyes. "You were someone else entirely, someone successful and powerful, and nothing like the girl I remembered. Is that a bad thing?" "I don't know." Daniel was being honest. "The Elena I knew was struggling to pay for textbooks and living on ramen. This Lena drives a Mercedes and runs a multi-million-dollar company. Those feel like different people." "They are different people," Lena said softly, "but they're also the same. I'm still the girl who spent hours in the library because I loved learning. I'm still the person who believes in building something meaningful. I just have more resources now." "And what about the rest of it? The lying about who you were?" Lena flinched. "I was protecting myself. If people knew who my father was, they would have treated me differently. They would have seen his money, his power, not me. You would have seen it too." "You don't know that, don't I?" Lena's voice sharpened. "Danny, you walked me to my dorm every night for 3 months before I told you my last name. You talked to me about your dreams, your family, your life. Would you have done that if you'd known I was Ramon Vega's daughter?" Daniel wanted to say yes immediately, but honesty made him pause. "I don't know. Maybe not at first, but I would have gotten past it. Maybe." Lena didn't sound convinced. "Or maybe you would have assumed I was slumming it, playing at being poor, that I couldn't possibly understand your life. Is that what you think of me?" "No." The word came quickly, emphatic. "I think you're the kindest person I've ever met, then and now. That's why I looked for you for 15 years. That's why when my car broke down yesterday and I saw you standing there, I couldn't breathe." Daniel's heart was racing. "When did you recognize me?" "Immediately, the second you got out of your truck." Lena's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You look the same. Older, yes, but the same. The way you move, the way you talk, the way you helped without expecting anything in return. It was like stepping back in time. But you didn't say anything." "I panicked." Lena laughed shakily. 15 years of wondering where you were, what you were doing, if you ever thought of me. And suddenly you're there, but you don't recognize me at all. I thought maybe I'd built you up in my head. Maybe what we had wasn't as real as I remembered." "It was real," Daniel said firmly. "Elena, every relationship I've had since then, I've compared to those 3 months with you. None of them measured up." "Lena," she corrected gently. "I'm Lena now. Elena Martinez died when my father's men dragged me out of that dorm." "But you said I could call you Elena." "You can. You're the only one who can." Lena turned to face him fully on the bench. "Because you knew her, the real her, not the corporate version I built to survive." Daniel studied her face, looking for the girl he'd known in the woman before him. The bones were the same. The eyes, those impossibly dark eyes. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. Elena was there, underneath the polish and power.
Why didn't you just leave yesterday? He asked. After I fixed your car? You could have driven away, gone back to your life. Why stay? Why risk telling me all this?
Lena was quiet for a long moment. Do you believe in second chances?
I don't know. Maybe. Why?
Because I spent 15 years building a company, making money, achieving everything I said I would. Lena's voice was steady, but her hands shook. And none of it felt like enough. I kept thinking, what's the point of all this success if I can't share it with someone who matters? Someone who knew me before the money, before the power, before I became Lena Whitmore. Elena, I'm not asking for anything, she interrupted. I know you have a life here, a daughter, responsibilities. I'm not trying to complicate that. She trailed off, searching for words. I just needed to know if what we had was real. If I've been chasing a ghost all these years, or if there was something worth finding. Daniel's chest felt tight. And now that you know I'm real? What then? I don't know. Lena's honesty was brutal. I don't have a plan past this conversation. I just knew I couldn't drive away without trying to find you again. A duck landed on the pond with a splash, breaking the tension. Daniel watched it paddle across the water, his mind churning through impossible scenarios. What did it mean that Lena, had found him? What was he supposed to do with this information? Tell me about your daughter, Lena said suddenly. Mia, right? The change in subject caught Daniel off guard. What do you want to know? Everything. What's she like? Does she look like you? What makes her laugh? Lena's interest seemed genuine. You said she's 7? Almost 8. Daniel pulled out his phone, finding a recent photo. Mia at her soccer game, grass-stained and grinning. She's smart, too smart sometimes. Asks questions about everything. She wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up, or a soccer player, or a chef. It changes weekly. Lena looked at the photo for a long time. She has your eyes. And your smile. She has her mother's stubborn streak. Daniel put the phone away. Jessica, my ex, she left when Mia was 18 months old. Decided motherhood and small-town life weren't for her. I'm sorry. Don't be. Jessica and I were wrong for each other from the start. We got together right after my mom's diagnosis, both of us looking for escape in the wrong places. Mia was the only good thing that came from it. Daniel leaned back against the bench. Being her dad is the best thing I've ever done. It shows. Lena's voice was soft. The way you talk about her, the way you dropped everything yesterday to get home to her. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. Daniel checked his watch, 12:35. He needed to get back to the garage soon. Listen, I know, you have to work. Lena stood quickly, like she'd been expecting this. Thank you for meeting me, for listening to my story. I know it's a lot to process. Daniel stood too, suddenly reluctant to let this moment end. What are you going to do now? Head back to the city? I don't know yet. Lena pulled out her car keys. I still have the room at the inn for another night. I thought I might stay, see the town. It's peaceful here. It's boring here, Daniel corrected. Nothing happens in Riverside. Sometimes boring is good. Lena smiled, and for a second she looked exactly like the girl from the library. Besides, something happened. I've found you. They walked back toward Main Street together, the silence between them less awkward than it should have been. At the corner where their paths diverged, Daniel toward the garage, Lena toward the inn, they stopped. Can I ask you something? Lena said. And you can say no. I'll understand completely. Okay. Can we do this again? Tomorrow? Maybe. Not talking about the past, just getting to know who we are now? She rushed on before he could answer. I know it's presumptuous. I know you have no reason to trust me after I disappeared, but I'd like to try being friends again, if you're willing. Daniel should have said no, should have drawn a clear line between his quiet life and this woman who represented everything complicated and uncertain, should have protected himself and Mia from the risk of caring about someone who would inevitably leave. Instead, he heard himself say, Coffee tomorrow morning? There's a place called Bean Street that opens at 6. I could meet you there before I open the garage. Lena's face lit up. 6 a.m. coffee sounds perfect. Fair warning, it's not fancy, Local place, nothing like what you're probably used to. I lived on gas station coffee for 2 years while building my company. Lena grinned. I think I'll survive. They said goodbye, and Daniel walked back to the garage with his head spinning. He'd just agreed to see her again, to let Lena, back into his life, even just as friends.
What was he thinking?
The afternoon passed in a blur of routine work. Daniel changed brake pads, rotated tires, fixed a muffler that was held on with duct tape and prayer. His hands did the work while his mind replayed the conversation in the park over and over. At 3:30, he closed up and drove to Mia's school. She came running out with her friend Emma, both girls giggling about something that had happened at recess. Daddy! Mia threw herself into his arms. I didn't die at school. I'm very proud of you for staying alive. Daniel hugged her tight. How was your day? Good. We had art class, and I made a painting of a dragon. Mrs. Martinez said it was very creative. Mrs. Martinez has good taste. The name hit him like a physical blow. Martinez. The name Elena had borrowed from her mother. The name that had led him down 100 dead ends over the years. Daddy, you're being weird again, Mia said, peering up at his face. Are you sure everything's okay? Everything's fine, Bug. He set her down, taking her backpack. How about we stop at the grocery store on the way home? We're out of cereal. Can we get the kind with marshmallows? The kind with some marshmallows and also some actual nutrition. Deal! At Linda's grocery, Mia pushed the cart while Daniel grabbed essentials. He was reaching for milk when a familiar voice said, Small world. Lena stood 3 feet away, holding a basket with wine, crackers, and cheese. She'd changed into running clothes, expensive-looking athletic wear that somehow made her fit into the small grocery store even less than the business clothes had. Miss Whitmore, Daniel said, hyper-aware of Mia watching them curiously. Didn't expect to see you here. The inn doesn't have room service. Lena's eyes flicked to Mia, and something soft crossed her face. This must be Mia. Hi, Mia said with the fearless curiosity of childhood. Are you Daddy's friend? We're old friends, Lena said carefully. From a long time ago. Like from before I was born? Exactly like that. Mia studied Lena with the intensity of a detective. You're very pretty, and your shoes are cool. Are they for running? They are. Do you run? I play soccer. Running's just part of it. Mia demonstrated with a quick sprint down the aisle, then back. See? I'm fast. Very fast, Lena agreed, smiling genuinely now. Daniel watched them interact, something strange and painful twisting in his chest. This should have been awkward, his daughter meeting the woman who'd haunted his memories for 15 years. Instead, it felt almost natural. We should let Ms. Whitmore finish her shopping, Daniel said, gently steering Mia away. We still need cereal, Bug. It was nice meeting you, Mia, Lena said. You too. Mia waved, then turned to Daniel as they walked toward the cereal aisle. She's nice. How come you never mentioned her before? Like she said, we were friends a long time ago. We lost touch. But now you found each other again? Something like that? That's good. Mia grabbed the cereal box she wanted. Everyone needs friends, Daddy. Even grown-ups. Out of the mouths of children, Daniel thought. They finished shopping and checked out, Lena already gone by the time they reached the register. At home, Daniel made dinner, spaghetti with marinara sauce, one of Mia's favorites, while she did homework at the kitchen table. Daddy? Mia asked during dinner. Do you think Ms. Whitmore is lonely? Daniel nearly choked on his pasta. What? She was buying dinner for one person, just like we do sometimes when it's you and me. Mia twirled spaghetti on her fork. I think she might be lonely. What makes you say that? She had sad eyes, like you do sometimes when you think I'm not looking. Daniel set down his fork, stunned by his daughter's perception. Bug, I'm not sad. Not all the time, but sometimes, when you think I'm asleep, I hear you walking around, like you can't sleep. Mia met his eyes seriously. Grandma said sometimes grown-ups carry heavy things they don't talk about. Your grandmother was a wise woman. So is Miss Whitmore lonely? I don't know, Bug. Maybe. Daniel chose his words carefully. Being successful doesn't always mean being happy. Then maybe you should be her friend again, for real this time. Mia returned to her spaghetti like this was the simplest solution in the world. After dinner, Daniel supervised teeth brushing and read 3 chapters of their current book, a fantasy about a girl who discovered she could talk to animals. Mia fell asleep during chapter 3, her hand curled under her cheek, looking impossibly young. Daniel sat there for a while, watching her breathe, thinking about the strange turns life took. 15 years ago, he'd been a college kid in love with a girl he barely knew. Now he was a single father running a garage, and that girl had become a CEO who bought wine and cheese at his local grocery store. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Lena. Got your number from your business card. I hope that's okay." Daniel stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. He could ignore it, could maintain professional distance, could protect the quiet life he'd built. Instead, he typed, "It's okay. See you at 6 a.m. The response came immediately. "Looking forward to it. Sleep well, Danny." No one had called him Danny in 15 years. Daniel closed his eyes, letting the weight of the day wash over him. Tomorrow he'd have coffee with Lena, and they'd try to build something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. Whether that was friendship or something else, he had no idea. But for the first time in a very long time, Daniel Reed felt something other than the comfortable numbness of routine. He felt possibility, and that was either the best thing that could happen or the most dangerous. He supposed he'd find out which at 6 a.m. Daniel woke at 5:15, 15 minutes before his alarm, his body betraying the anxiety his mind had been trying to suppress. He lay in the darkness of his bedroom, listening to the house settle around him, the familiar creaks and sighs of old wood and older pipes, and wondered what the hell he was doing. Coffee with Lena, whatever he was supposed to call her now. He showered quickly, dressed in clean jeans and his least faded flannel shirt, then stood in front of the bathroom mirror trying to see himself through her eyes. 40 years old, though people usually guessed younger, lines starting around his eyes from squinting at engine parts in bad lighting, calloused hands that no amount of soap could quite clean, a man who looked exactly like what he was, a small-town mechanic who'd never left home. What did a CEO see when she looked at him? Mia was still asleep when he checked her room at 5:45. He left a note on the kitchen table. "Gone to get coffee before work. Mrs. Chen is picking you up at 7:15. Love you, bug," and slipped out into the pre-dawn darkness. Bean Street Coffee occupied a narrow storefront between the hardware store and a law office that had been closed since the lawyer retired 3 years ago. Sarah Martinez, no relation to Elena's borrowed name, just one of those coincidences that made small towns feel even smaller, had opened it 5 years back, and it had become Daniel's morning ritual whenever he could spare the time. Sarah was already pulling shots when Daniel walked in at 5:55, the espresso machine hissing and gurgling. "You're early," she said without looking up, "and you're wearing your good shirt. What's the occasion?" "Can't a man just want coffee?" "Not when that man is you." Sarah turned, really looking at him now, and her eyebrows rose. "Oh, you're meeting someone. Is it that obvious? Daniel Reed, you've been coming here for 5 years wearing the same 3 work shirts. Today you're in flannel that's actually been ironed." Sarah grinned. "So who is she?" "An old friend." Daniel leaned against the counter, grateful the shop was empty. "From college. She's in town for a few days." "The woman with the Mercedes?" At Daniel's surprised look, Sarah laughed. "Come on, this is Riverside. Emily at the inn told her sister, who told me. Apparently this woman is some kind of big-shot CEO, and you fixed her car on the highway." "Yeah, that's her." "And now you're having 6 a.m. coffee together." Sarah started making his usual order without asking. "That's interesting." "It's just coffee, Sarah." "Uh-huh." Sarah's tone suggested she didn't believe that for a second. "Well, good for you. You deserve some excitement that doesn't involve Mia's school projects or broken transmissions." The bell above the door chimed. Daniel turned to see Lena walking in, and his breath caught despite himself. She'd dressed down again, dark jeans, a gray sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back. She looked younger like this, more like the Elena he remembered. But there was no mistaking the confidence in the way she moved, the expensive watch on her wrist, the designer bag over her shoulder. "Hi," she said, smiling tentatively at Daniel before turning to Sarah. "Good morning." "Morning." Sarah's customer service voice clicked on, bright and cheerful. "What can I get you?" "Americano, please, 2 shots." "You got it." Sarah set Daniel's coffee on the counter, black, 1 sugar, and started on Lena's order. "So, you're the Mercedes woman." Lena blinked. Yes?" "Small town," Daniel explained. "Everyone knows everything." Apparently, Lena pulled out her wallet, but Daniel had already handed Sarah a 20. "I've got it," he said. "You don't have to, I know." He picked up his coffee and moved to a table by the window, where Main Street was just starting to wake up in the gray dawn light. Lena joined him a moment later, wrapping her hands around her cup like she needed the warmth. "Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you'd actually show up." "I said I would." "People say a lot of things." Lena took a sip of her coffee, her eyes closing briefly. "Oh, that's good. Really good." "Sarah knows what she's doing." Daniel watched her over the rim of his cup. "You look tired." "I didn't sleep much." Lena's honesty was disarming. "Kept replaying our conversation, wondering if I said too much, or not enough, or the wrong things entirely." "You weren't the only one." Daniel set down his cup. "I kept my daughter up an extra hour because I was too distracted to notice she'd finished her homework." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt your life." "Too late for that." The words came out harsher than Daniel intended. He softened his tone. "I just mean, you can't show up after 15 years and expect everything to stay the same." "I know." Lena looked down at her coffee. "For what it's worth, my life is disrupted too. I've never taken a personal day without planning it months in advance. My assistant thinks I'm having a breakdown." "Are you?" "Maybe." She met his eyes. "Is that crazy? Dropping everything because I randomly found my first love on a highway?" The word love hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. "I don't know if it's crazy," he said carefully, "but I do know we need to be realistic about this, whatever this is." "Meaning?" "Meaning you have a life in the city, a company to run. I have a daughter and a garage and roots that go 6 feet deep in this town." Daniel forced himself to say what needed saying. "Even if we wanted to try again, and I'm not saying we do, I can't see how it would work." Lena flinched like he'd struck her. "So this is just closure. We have coffee, acknowledge what we had 15 years ago, and then go our separate ways?" "I don't know what this is." Daniel's frustration leaked through. "You tell me, Elena. You're the one who stayed in town. You're the one who showed up at my garage. What do you want from me?" "I want..." Lena stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "I want to know if I've been chasing a ghost. If what we had was as real as I remember, or if I've built it up in my head into something it never was. And how do we figure that out? By spending time together, talking, getting to know who we are now instead of who we were then." Lena leaned forward. "Danny, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know showing up like this is selfish, but I can't walk away without trying." "Trying what exactly?" "To see if there's still something here worth building on." Daniel wanted to say no, wanted to protect himself and Mia from the inevitable heartbreak when Lena got bored with small-town life and went back to her CEO world. But the hope in her eyes, the vulnerability in her voice, broke through his defenses. "I have Mia to think about," he said finally. "She's my priority, always. I would never ask you to choose between us." "People say that. Then they get frustrated when a 7-year-old's needs come first." "I'm not people." Lena's voice was firm. "And I meant what I said yesterday. I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm asking for a chance to be part of your life as it is. You don't know what my life is like. Then show me." The challenge in her tone was unmistakable. "I've got 3 more days before I absolutely have to be back for a board meeting. Show me Riverside. Show me what you've built. Let me see if I can fit into it, instead of assuming I can't." Daniel should have said no. Every logical part of his brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. But the part of him that had spent 15 years wondering what if couldn't quite form the word. 3 days.
he said. But if Mia needs me, everything else stops. And if at any point you decide this isn't what you want, you tell me. No disappearing this time. No disappearing, Lena agreed. I promise. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee while dawn broke properly over Main Street. Sarah was serving a couple of early morning regulars now, studiously not looking in their direction, though Daniel could feel her curiosity from across the room. Tell me about your company, Daniel said finally. Whitmore Technologies. What do you actually do? We build software solutions for small to medium businesses. Lena's whole demeanor changed when she talked about work. Her shoulders straightened, her voice gained confidence. Specifically, we focus on companies that can't afford enterprise-level systems but need more than basic office software. Custom inventory management, client relationship tools, automated billing systems. That sounds complicated. It's basically just making life easier for people trying to run businesses, Lena smiled. Like if you wanted a system to track customer appointments, parts inventory, billing history, and have it all talk to each other, that's what we'd build. Daniel thought about his own garage, his handwritten appointment book, the parts inventory he kept in his head, the filing cabinet full of customer records. That might actually be useful. It would be. But you'd never pay for it because you're doing fine with your current system, and why fix what isn't broken? Lena's insight was uncomfortably accurate. That's the challenge, convincing people like you that there's a better way. People like me, Daniel repeated. Small-town mechanics who don't know any better? People who've made something work through sheer determination and don't trust easy solutions. Lena's tone was gentle, not condescending. You're not my target market anyway. I focus on businesses with 5 to 50 employees, companies big enough that manual systems are breaking down, but too small for the big software companies to care about. And that's profitable? $800 million profitable. Last valuation. Lena said it matter-of-factly, like it was no big deal. We're planning to go public next year. Daniel tried to wrap his head around that number. 800 million. It was more money than everyone in Riverside would earn in their entire lives combined. That's incredible, he said honestly. You really did it. Everything you said you would. Most of it. Lena's expression grew wistful. I built the company, made the money, proved everyone wrong who said I couldn't. But the rest of it, the life part, the happiness part, that's still a work in progress. You're not happy? I'm successful. That's not the same thing. Lena traced the rim of her cup. I have a beautiful apartment I'm never in, a calendar full of meetings that all blur together, and a social life that consists of networking events and charity galas where everyone wants something from me. It's exhausting. Then why do it? Because I don't know how to do anything else. The admission seemed to cost her. I spent so long fighting to get here, proving I could succeed on my own terms. Stopping feels like admitting defeat. Daniel understood that more than he wanted to admit. I get it. After my mom died, people kept telling me I should sell the garage, move somewhere with better opportunities. But this place was all I had left of my dad and mom both. Leaving felt like betraying them. So you stayed. So I stayed. Daniel looked out the window at his town, familiar and comfortable and small. And I made peace with it. This might not be the life I planned, but it's a good life. Mia's happy here. I'm useful here. That matters. It does matter. Lena's voice was soft. More than you know. Yesterday, when you fixed my car and wouldn't take money for it, when you explained everything patiently, when you showed me how to check my tire pressure. Do you know how rare that is? Someone helping without an agenda? That's just being decent. In my world, nothing is just anything. Every interaction has a transactional element. Every kindness comes with expectations. Lena met his eyes. But you helped me because you could. Because it was the right thing to do. Same as you did 15 years ago when you walked me to my dorm at midnight, even though it wasn't your job. The memory hit Daniel hard. Those walks with Elena had been the highlight of his college experience. Two people who should have existed in completely different orbits, finding common ground in late-night conversations about dreams and fears and futures. I liked walking with you, he said quietly. Those nights you made me feel like I was more than just the security guard, like I was someone worth knowing. You were worth knowing. You still are.
Lena reached across the table, her hand hovering near his but not quite touching. That's what I've been trying to say, Danny. In 15 years of success, I never found anyone who made me feel the way you did. Like I could be myself without pretense or performance. Daniel looked at her hand, so close to his, and felt the pull of old feelings mixing dangerously with new ones. Elena, I need you to understand something. I'm not that college kid anymore. I'm a single father with limited time and even more limited energy. I can't offer you excitement or adventure or anything beyond this small town. I don't want excitement, Lena's voice was fierce. I have excitement. I have adventure. What I want is real. Someone who sees me, not my bank account, or my company, or my last name. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you haven't seen in 15 years. I know. Lena finally pulled her hand back, wrapping it around her coffee cup. I'm not trying to rush anything. I'm just asking for a chance to see if what we had could grow into something new. Before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Mia's cough is worse this morning. Might want to keep her home from school. Daniel's stomach dropped. I need to go. Mia's not feeling well. Of course. Lena stood immediately. Is she okay? Do you need anything? Just a common cold, probably, but I should check on her. Daniel was already moving toward the door. I'm sorry, don't apologize. Go take care of your daughter. Lena followed him out onto the sidewalk. Can I help? I could pick up medicine, or we'll be fine. Daniel's mind was already shifting into dad mode, running through symptom checklists and medication dosages. I'll call you later, okay? Okay, Kay. Lena watched him unlock his truck. Danny, thank you for meeting me, for giving me a chance. Daniel nodded, already pulling out his phone to call Mrs. Chen back. As he drove the 3 blocks home, he could see Lana in his rearview mirror, standing alone on the empty street, and something in his chest twisted painfully. Mrs. Chen was waiting outside his building with Mia, who looked miserable. Red nose, watery eyes, the kind of cough that came from deep in the chest. I was about to take her to school, but she got worse, Mrs. Chen explained, her hand on Mia's forehead. No fever, but that cough sounds rough. Thanks for bringing her home. Daniel scooped up his daughter, who buried her face in his shoulder. Come on, Bug. Let's get you back to bed. Upstairs, he settled Mia on the couch with blankets, cartoons, and a dose of children's cough medicine. She curled up in her usual sick kid position, knees tucked, favorite stuffed elephant clutched tight, and looked up at him with sad eyes. I'm sorry, Daddy. For what? For being sick. I know you had to work today. Daniel's heart broke a little. Bug, you never have to apologize for being sick. Work can wait. You're what matters. But what about your friend, the pretty lady from the store? She understands. Daniel tucked the blanket around her shoulders. Right now, you're my only priority. Mia seemed satisfied with that answer, her eyes already drooping from the medicine. Daniel sat beside her, one hand resting on her back, feeling the slight wheeze in her breathing. Not pneumonia bad, but definitely stay home and monitor bad. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. How is she? Daniel replied one-handed. Bad cold, keeping her home today. Can I bring anything? Soup? Medicine? He should say no. Should maintain boundaries, but his fridge was mostly empty, and the thought of leaving Mia alone even for 10 minutes to run to the store made him anxious. Chicken soup from Joe's Diner would be great, if you don't mind. On it. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on his door. Daniel opened it to find Lena holding a bag from Joe's Diner and a pharmacy bag. Soup, as requested, she said quietly, clearly aware of Mia sleeping on the couch. And I grabbed some children's cold medicine, tissues, and popsicles because my mom always said popsicles help sore throats. Daniel took the bags, overwhelmed by the simple kindness. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. Lena peeked past him at Mia. She looks so small when she's sleeping. She is small. Daniel set the bags on the kitchen counter, keeping his voice low. Some days I forget she's only 7. She acts so grown up, especially since it's just the 2 of us. That must be hard, not having anyone to share it with. You get used to it. Daniel started unpacking the soup. When she was a baby, before Jessica left, I used to panic about every little thing. Now I've got it down to a system.
Cough medicine every 4 hours, fluids, rest, monitor for fever. If she's not better in 3 days, call the pediatrician. Lena watched him move around the kitchen with the efficiency of long practice. You're a good father. I'm her father. It's not about good or bad, it's just what you do. Not everyone does it well. Lena's voice carried old pain. My father had every resource in the world and still couldn't be bothered to actually parent. Daniel stopped, really looking at her. I'm sorry. That must have been lonely. It was.
But it taught me what kind of parent I never want to be. Lena smiled sadly. Not that I'm in any position to have kids. I can barely keep a plant alive. You'd be surprised what you can do when you have to. Daniel poured soup into a bowl, checking the temperature with his finger. Old habit from when Mia was too young to tell him if something was too hot. When Mia was born, I had no idea what I was doing. I was 25 and terrified. But you figure it out because the alternative is letting them down. From the couch, Mia coughed, a deep rattling sound that made Daniel wince. He brought her the soup, helping her sit up enough to eat a few spoonfuls before she shook her head. Tummy hurts, she whispered. Okay, Bug, just rest then. Daniel set the soup aside, his hand automatically going to her forehead. Still no fever, thank goodness. Mia's eyes focused on Lena, standing uncertainly in the kitchen doorway. Hi, Ms. Whitmore. Hi, Mia. I heard you weren't feeling well. I have a yucky cold. Mia coughed to demonstrate. Daddy's taking care of me, though. He always does. Your dad is very good at taking care of people. Lena moved closer, kneeling beside the couch so she was at Mia's eye level. I brought popsicles. Do you think you could eat one? They might help your throat. What kind? Cherry and orange. Cherry's my favorite. Mia perked up slightly. Daniel retrieved a popsicle, unwrapping it and handing it to Mia, who sucked on it gratefully. Color returned to her cheeks a bit, and her eyes brightened. Thank you, Miss Whitmore, Mia said politely. You can call me Lena if you want. Lena. Mia tested the name. That's pretty. Are you and Daddy really old friends? We are. From before you were born. That's what Daddy said. Mia looked between them with innocent curiosity. Did you used to go on dates? Daniel nearly choked. Bug, it's okay, Lena said, amusement dancing in her eyes. We weren't exactly dating, but we spent a lot of time together. Your dad used to walk me home at night to make sure I was safe. That sounds like Daddy. He's always helping people. Mia took another lick of her popsicle. He helped Mrs. Chen fix her car for free, and he always carries groceries for old people even when they don't ask. Those are good things to do, Lena said softly. Uh-huh. Daddy says being kind doesn't cost anything, so you should be kind whenever you can. Mia yawned hugely. I'm sleepy again. That's the medicine, Bug. Close your eyes. Daniel eased her back down, taking the half-eaten popsicle. Within minutes, Mia was asleep again, her breathing slightly less labored. Daniel gestured for Lena to follow him into the kitchen, where they could talk without waking her. She's sweet, Lena said. Really sweet. You've done an amazing job with her. She makes it easy, most of the time. Daniel leaned against the counter, suddenly aware of how small his apartment must seem to someone like Lena. 2 bedrooms, worn furniture, toys scattered, despite his best organizational efforts. Sorry about the mess, and the impromptu parenting lesson. Don't apologize. This is your life. This is what I wanted to see. Lena looked around the kitchen, the crayon drawings on the refrigerator, the breakfast dishes still in the sink, the half-finished homework on the table. It's real. It matters. It's also exhausting and chaotic and completely unglamorous. Glamorous is overrated. Lena met his eyes. Can I tell you something? Yesterday, after we talked in the park, I went back to the inn and worked for 6 hours. Conference calls with Tokyo, spreadsheets, quarterly projections, all the things that usually make me feel successful and important. And all I could think about was you and Mia having dinner together. You mentioned making pancakes, and I couldn't stop imagining what that looked like. The 2 of you in this kitchen, talking about her day, just being together. Lena's voice cracked slightly. I have a penthouse apartment with a view of the city skyline, and I eat takeout alone while answering emails. That's my glamorous life. Daniel didn't know what to say to that. The loneliness in her voice was almost painful to hear. "You should stay," he found himself saying. "I'm going to be here all day with Mia anyway. You could hang out, see what my actual life looks like, if you want." "Are you sure? I don't want to intrude." "You already brought soup and popsicles. Might as well stay and see if your contribution actually helps." Daniel managed a small smile. "Fair warning, it's going to be incredibly boring. Cartoons, medicine schedules, and making sure she stays hydrated." "That sounds perfect," Lena said, and she meant it. The day unfolded in a series of small moments. Mia woke and slept in cycles, each time briefly interacting with Lena before the medicine pulled her back under. During the wake periods, Lena asked questions about Mia's favorite subjects in school, her soccer team, her friends, with genuine interest that wasn't just politeness. During the sleep periods, Daniel and Lena talked, really talked, the way they used to in the library 15 years ago. She told him about building her company from scratch, the early failures, the moment it all clicked. He told her about the first time he kept the garage open all night to finish a repair for a single mother who needed her car for work the next morning. "You still do that, don't you?" Lena said. "Prioritize people over profit." "It's not sustainable business practice," Daniel admitted, "but I sleep better at night." Around 2 p.m., Mia woke up hungry. Daniel made grilled cheese sandwiches, one of the few foods Mia would eat when sick, and was surprised when Lena jumped in to help, cutting sandwiches into triangles without being asked. "My mom used to cut them like this," Lena said quietly, "before my father decided hired help should do all the cooking." "What happened to your mom?" Daniel asked, realizing he'd never heard Lena mention her. "She died when I was 16. Car accident." Lena's hand stilled on the knife. "That's when my father went from controlling to unbearable. I think he was scared of losing me too, so he tried to lock me down. Backfired spectacularly." "I'm sorry about your mom." "Me too. She would have liked you." Lena resumed cutting. "She always said the measure of a man was how he treated people who couldn't do anything for him. You would have passed that test." They ate lunch together, the three of them, Mia perking up enough to tell Lena about her soccer team's championship hopes and her teacher who sometimes brought her dog to school. It felt strangely domestic, like something that could be normal if circumstances were different. After lunch, Mia wanted to watch her favorite movie, an animated film about dragons Daniel had seen approximately 400 times. Lena settled on the couch beside her without hesitation, and Mia immediately curled into her side like she'd known Lena her whole life. Daniel watched them from the kitchen, something tight and painful in his chest. This was dangerous, letting Lena into their life like this, letting Mia get attached to someone who would inevitably leave. But he couldn't bring himself to stop it. By evening, Mia was feeling well enough to be bored, which Daniel knew from experience meant she was on the mend. She demanded to do a puzzle, insisted Lena help, and proceeded to boss them both around about which pieces went where. "You're very bossy when you're sick," Daniel told his daughter. "Grandma said bossy is just another word for knowing what you want," Mia retorted, sounding so much like his mother that Daniel's heart ached. "Your grandmother said a lot of things," he replied fondly. "Did you know my grandma?" Mia asked Lena. "No, I never had that honor, but your dad talks about her like she was pretty special." "She was the best." Mia's eyes filled with tears, partially the lingering cold, partially real grief. "I miss her." "I know, Bug." Daniel pulled her into his lap, ignoring the puzzle. "I miss her too." Lena quietly excused herself to the kitchen, giving them space for the moment. When Mia's tears passed and she returned to the puzzle, Lena came back with 3 glasses of water. "Hydration is important," she said, handing one to Mia. "You sound like Daddy. Your dad is very smart about taking care of people." At 7 p.m., Daniel started Mia's bedtime routine. Bath, pajamas, teeth brushing, all accomplished with Lena helping in small ways. Finding Mia's favorite pajamas, filling up her water bottle for the night, locating the stuffed elephant that had gone missing under the couch. When Mia was finally tucked into bed, she looked up at Lena with sleepy eyes. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked. Lena glanced at Daniel, uncertain. "If your dad says it's okay." "Of course it's okay," Mia said before Daniel could answer. "You're nice, and you help take care of me. That makes you almost family." "Bug, that's not—" Daniel started, but Mia was already yawning. "Night, Daddy. Night, Lena." "Good night, sweetheart," Lena said softly. Daniel read 2 chapters of their current book, but Mia was asleep before he finished the second one. He turned out her light and found Lena waiting in the living room gathering her things. "I should go," she said. "Let you have your evening." "You don't have to rush off." Daniel was surprised to find he meant it, "unless you need to work or something." "I should probably check my email, but honestly," Lena smiled, "this has been the best day I've had in years." "We barely did anything." "Exactly." Lena moved toward the door, then paused. "Thank you, Danny, for letting me be part of this. I know it's not easy, opening up your life to someone you barely know anymore." "You're not someone I barely know." The truth came out before Daniel could stop it. "You're Elena Martinez, who made me believe in possibilities. You're just also Lena Whitmore now, and I'm still figuring out how those 2 people fit together." "So am I," Lena admitted, "but I'd like to keep trying, if you're willing." Daniel thought about Mia's instant attachment, about how natural it felt having Lena in his space, about the way his carefully constructed walls were already showing cracks. "Tomorrow night," he heard himself say. "Mia usually feels better after the first day. We could all have dinner. Nothing fancy, just the 3 of us." "I'd really like that." After Lena left, Daniel cleaned up the remnants of the day: soup bowls, popsicle wrappers, puzzle pieces scattered across the coffee table. His phone buzzed with a text from her. "Thank you for today. Sleep well." He replied, "You too. See you tomorrow." That night, lying in bed, Daniel admitted something to himself that he'd been avoiding for 2 days. He was falling for Lena Whitmore. Not the memory of Elena Martinez, but the real woman who'd spent her day helping care for a sick 7-year-old, who'd asked genuine questions about his life, who'd looked at his small apartment like it was something precious instead of something lacking. And that terrified him more than anything, because Daniel Reed had spent 15 years building a life that was safe and predictable and free from the kind of heartbreak that came from wanting things you couldn't have. He'd made peace with his choices, with his limitations, with the boundaries of his small-town existence. But Lena made him want more, made him remember what it felt like to dream beyond tomorrow's appointments and next month's bills, made him wonder if maybe, just maybe, he could have something more than survival. The question was whether he was brave enough to try, whether he could risk everything he'd built on the possibility that a CEO from the city might actually fit into his mechanic's life, and whether he could handle it when she inevitably realized she didn't. Morning came with Mia bouncing on Daniel's bed at 6:30, her energy restored and her cough reduced to an occasional tickle. "I'm better, Daddy. Can I go to school, please?" Daniel groaned, one eye cracking open to see his daughter kneeling beside him, vibrating with recovered 7-year-old enthusiasm. "Let me check." He pressed his hand to her forehead, cool, and listened to her breathe. Clear, mostly. "How do you feel?" "Perfect. I need to go to school because we're doing science experiments today, and Emma said we get to make volcanoes, and I can't miss that, Daddy. I just can't." Okay. Daniel sat up, his back protesting the previous day spent on the couch. "School it is, but if you start feeling bad again, you tell the nurse immediately." "I promise." Mia threw her arms around his neck. "You're the best daddy ever." "Remember that when you're a teenager," Daniel muttered, but he was smiling. By 7:15, Mia was fed, dressed, and practically dragging him out the door. At the crosswalk, she hugged him, and then paused, looking up with those 2 perceptive eyes. "Is Lena coming for dinner tonight?" "Yeah, she is. Is that okay with you?" "It's great." Mia's grin was enormous. "I like her, Daddy. She's nice, and she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby, and she knows about computers and stuff. Can she teach me about computers?" "We'll see, Bug. Now go before you're late." Daniel watched her run across the street, her backpack bouncing, and felt that familiar mixture of pride and terror that came with single parenthood. Mia was getting attached to Lena, fast. And if this thing between them didn't work out, it wouldn't just be his heart that broke. The garage was busy that morning, 3 oil changes, a transmission that needed rebuilding, and Mrs. Patterson back again because her check engine light had come on. Daniel lost himself in the work, hands moving through familiar patterns while his mind spun in circles about the evening ahead. Around 11, his phone rang. Lena's name on the screen made his heart jump. "Hey," he answered, wiping grease on his work rag. "Hi, bad time?" "Just finishing up a job. What's up?" "I was thinking about tonight." Lena sounded nervous. "Would it be weird if I brought groceries? I thought maybe I could cook dinner for the three of us." Daniel blinked, surprised. "You cook?" "I used to, before my life became nothing but takeout and catered events. I'm not amazing at it, but I can manage a decent meal." She paused. "Unless you'd rather I didn't. I don't want to overstep." "No, that sounds nice, actually." Daniel tried to remember the last time someone cooked dinner in his apartment that wasn't him. Couldn't. "What were you thinking of making?" "Mia mentioned yesterday that she likes spaghetti. I could do that, and maybe a salad, garlic bread. Simple but filling." "She'd love that." Daniel hesitated, then added, "I'd love that too." "Okay." Relief flooded Lena's voice. "What time should I come over?" "Mia gets out at 3:30. Anytime after 4? "Perfect. I'll see you then." After hanging up, Daniel stood in his garage staring at his phone like it might explain what was happening to his carefully ordered life. A CEO was coming to his apartment to cook dinner for him and his daughter. This was surreal. "You look like a man who just got asked on a date," Harold from Harold's garage said, leaning against the doorframe with a knowing grin. "I'm working, Harold. What do you want?" "Came to borrow that metric socket set again. But now I'm more interested in why you're smiling at your phone like a teenager." Harold moved closer, his weathered face creasing with amusement. "This about that fancy woman who's been around town? The one in the Mercedes?" "Small towns," Daniel muttered. "Wouldn't be a small town if we didn't mind each other's business." Harold grabbed the socket set from Daniel's workbench. "Sarah at the coffee shop says you two were college sweethearts. That true?" "It's complicated. It always is." Harold headed for the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, Daniel, you deserve some happiness. Sarah would have wanted that for you." The mention of his mother hit Daniel square in the chest. "Thanks, Harold." Alone again, Daniel returned to the transmission rebuild, but his heart wasn't in it. His mind kept jumping to the evening ahead, Lena in his kitchen, Mia chattering about her day, the three of them around his small table like some kind of makeshift family. The word family stuck in his throat. That's what Mia had said last night. Almost family. Kids didn't understand the complexity of adult relationships, the impossibility of fitting a square peg into a round hole. But maybe Daniel didn't want to understand it either. Maybe he just wanted to enjoy one dinner without overthinking every possible disaster. At 3:30, he closed the garage and drove to Mia's school. She came running out with Emma, both girls talking over each other about the volcano experiment that had apparently exceeded all expectations. "It exploded everywhere, Daddy, like lava but with baking soda and vinegar and red food coloring." Mia climbed into the truck, still gesticulating wildly. "Mrs. Martinez said it was the best eruption she'd seen in 5 years of teaching." "That's great, Bug. I'm glad you felt well enough to participate." "I told you I was better." Mia buckled her seatbelt, then looked at him hopefully. "Is Lena still coming for dinner?" "She is. Actually, she's cooking for us." "Really?" Mia's eyes went wide. "What's she making?" "Spaghetti." "Yes." Mia pumped her fist. "I like Lena more and more." Back at the apartment, Daniel made Mia change out of her food-coloring, stained school clothes and start her homework while he attempted to make the place presentable. He washed dishes, cleared the coffee table of yesterday's puzzle remnants, and was in the middle of vacuuming when there was a knock at the door. Lena stood in the hallway holding 2 grocery bags and looking uncertain in a way that made her seem more like Elena than Lena Whitmore, CEO. "Hi," she said. "I might have overbought. I wasn't sure what you had in your pantry, so I just got everything." "Come in." Daniel took one of the bags, catching a glimpse of pasta, sauce, fresh vegetables, and what looked like the ingredients for homemade garlic bread. "You weren't kidding about everything." "I may have gotten excited." Lena followed him to the kitchen, setting down her bag. "It's been a while since I cooked for people." "Lena!" Mia abandoned her homework, running over to hug Lena's waist. "Daddy said you're making spaghetti." "I am." "Want to help?" "Can I?" Mia looked up at Daniel for permission. "Homework first, Bug. Then you can help with dinner." Mia groaned but returned to the table.
attacking her math worksheet with renewed determination. Daniel helped Lena unpack the groceries, hyper-aware of how small his kitchen was, how their hands kept brushing as they reached for the same cabinet. "You really didn't have to do all this," he said quietly. "I wanted to." Lena met his eyes. "Besides, cooking is therapeutic. Gives my hands something to do besides check email every 5 minutes." "You can check email if you need to. I know you're still working." "I've been ignoring work for 3 days. My assistant has probably filed a missing persons report." Lena pulled out a cutting board. "But right now, I'd rather make garlic bread." While Lena prepped ingredients, Daniel finished his vacuuming and then joined Mia at the table to help with her math. But his attention kept drifting to the woman in his kitchen, moving around the space like she belonged there. She'd changed into jeans and a simple black t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she looked completely different from the polished CEO who'd walked into his garage 3 days ago. She looked real, accessible, like someone who might actually fit into his world. "Daddy, you're not listening," Mia complained. "Sorry, Bug, what was the question?" "If Tommy has 12 apples and gives away 4, how many does he have left?" 8, Daniel and Lena said simultaneously. Mia giggled. "You guys are like those couples on TV who finish each other's sentences." Daniel felt heat rise to his face. We're not." "Homework, Mia," Lena interjected smoothly, though she was smiling. "The sooner you finish, the sooner you can help me cook." That motivated Mia to power through the remaining problems in record time. 20 minutes later, she was standing on a step stool beside Lena, carefully tearing basil leaves for the sauce. "Not too small," Lena instructed. "You want to be able to taste them, but not have huge chunks." "Like this?" "Perfect." Daniel watched them from the doorway, something fierce and protective and terrifying rising in his chest. This was what Mia had been missing. A maternal presence, someone patient and kind who could teach her things Daniel couldn't. And the way Lena looked at his daughter, like Mia was genuinely interesting and not just a child to be tolerated, made Daniel's carefully constructed walls crumble a little more. "Can you tell me about computers?" Mia asked as she worked. "Daddy said you know lots about them." "I do." "What do you want to know?" "How do they work? Like, how does typing on the keyboard make words show up on the screen?" Lena launched into an explanation that was somehow both technical and accessible, talking about circuits and processors and code in a way that made Mia's eyes light up with understanding. Daniel listened too, fascinated by how naturally Lena shifted into teacher mode. "So computers are just really good at following instructions," Mia summarized, "but they need people to tell them what to do." "Exactly. That's what I do. I write instructions for computers so they can help people run their businesses better." "That's so cool." Mia looked at Lena with open admiration. "When I grow up, can I do that too?" "You can do anything you want, if you're willing to work hard and never give up." Lena's voice carried conviction. "Don't let anyone tell you something's too hard or not for girls. If you want it, you go after it." Daniel recognized the echo of her own story in those words. The girl who'd fought her way out of her father's control to build something entirely her own. Dinner came together with surprising efficiency. Lena let Mia handle simple tasks, stirring sauce, arranging bread on a baking sheet, while managing the more complex elements herself. Daniel set the table, found napkins, poured water for Mia and wine for himself and Lena. When they finally sat down to eat, the spaghetti was perfect. Rich sauce, al dente pasta, garlic bread that was crispy on the outside and soft within. Mia dove in with enthusiasm, twirling pasta onto her fork with mixed results. "This is really good," Daniel said honestly. "Where'd you learn to cook like this?" "My mom, before she died. We used to cook together on Sunday afternoons." Lena's expression turned wistful. "It was our time, just the two of us. She'd teach me family recipes and tell me stories about growing up poor in Mexico City. My father hated it, said cooking was beneath us, that we had staff for that. But Mom insisted." "I'm glad she did," Mia said through a mouthful of pasta. "This is way better than Daddy's spaghetti." "Hey," Daniel protested, "my spaghetti is perfectly adequate." "Adequate is not the same as good," Mia informed him seriously. Lena laughed, and the sound filled Daniel's small apartment with warmth. They ate and talked,
Mia dominating the conversation with stories about school, her soccer team, her best friend Emma's upcoming birthday party. Lena listened to all of it with genuine interest, asking questions, responding to Mia's tangents without impatience. After dinner, Mia insisted on helping clean up. The three of them worked together, Mia scraping plates, Daniel washing, Lena drying, and it felt so natural that Daniel almost forgot this wasn't his normal life. Almost forgot that in a day or two, Lena would go back to the city and this temporary domesticity would end. "Bath time, Bug," Daniel announced when the kitchen was clean. "But I'm not dirty." "You have dried food coloring in your hair from the volcano experiment." Mia touched her hair, finding the red streak she'd forgotten about. Okay, fine." While Mia bathed, Daniel and Lena moved to the couch with their wine. The apartment was quiet except for Mia's off-key singing from the bathroom, something about dragons that she'd learned at school. "Thank you for tonight," Daniel said. "Dinner, helping with Mia, all of it. You didn't have to." "I know I didn't have to. I wanted to." Lena curled into the corner of the couch, her wine glass cradled in both hands. "Is it weird that I've had more fun cooking spaghetti in your tiny kitchen than I had at a 500-person gala last month?" "A little weird, yeah. That gala cost my company $50,000 to sponsor. I wore a dress that cost more than your truck. I networked with CEOs and senators and people whose names make headlines." Lena took a sip of wine, "And I spent the whole night wishing I was anywhere else." "Why go, then?" "Because it's expected. Because building relationships is part of the job. Because sometimes you do things not because they make you happy, but because they're necessary." Lena looked at him over her glass. "But sitting here with you and Mia, eating spaghetti and talking about volcano experiments, this makes me happy." Daniel's heart was doing dangerous things in his chest. "Elena, I need to tell you something." Lena set down her wine, her expression turning serious. "I have a board meeting Thursday morning that I can't miss, which means I have to drive back tomorrow night." The words hit like cold water. "Tomorrow. I'm sorry. I've pushed it as far as I can. If I don't show up, there will be consequences. Not just for me, but for my employees, my investors, everyone counting on me. I understand." Daniel did understand, even as disappointment settled heavy in his stomach. "You have responsibilities. So do you, to Mia, to your garage, to this town." Lena reached for his hand, her fingers tentative. "But Danny, I don't want this to end. These 3 days with you and Mia, they've reminded me what I've been missing, what I've been too busy to even realize I wanted." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try, really try." Lena's grip on his hand tightened. "I know it won't be easy. I know the logistics are complicated, but I haven't felt this alive in years, and I don't want to walk away from that." Daniel looked at their joined hands, his calloused and scarred from years of mechanical work, her smooth and elegant despite the simple lack of pretension in how she'd spent the evening. 2 different worlds, 2 different lives, somehow meeting in his small apartment. "I want to try too," he admitted, "but I need you to understand what you'd be signing up for. My life isn't glamorous. It's early mornings and late nights, sick kids and broken down cars, small-town gossip and limited options. I can't offer you excitement or adventure." "I don't want excitement. I want real." Lena's eyes were fierce. "I want someone who sees me, not my net worth. Someone who challenges me to be better, but accepts me as I am. Someone who makes me want to cook spaghetti on a Tuesday night instead of working through dinner alone." "That's a lot to put on someone." "Maybe. But you're the only person in 15 years who's made me feel like I could have both. The career I built and the life I want." Before Daniel could respond, Mia's voice called from the bathroom. "Daddy, I need a towel." "I put clean ones in there this morning," Daniel called back. "I can't find them." Daniel sighed, standing up. "Sorry, parenting duty calls." "I'll be here." In the bathroom, Mia was standing in the tub, dripping wet, having somehow overlooked the towel hanging on the rack directly in front of her. Daniel wrapped her up, helped her dry off, and got her into pajamas while she chattered about whether dragons were real, and if they were, could she have one as a pet. "No dragons, Bug. We barely have room for you in this apartment." "But if we had a bigger apartment?" "Still no dragons." When he returned to the living room, Lena had moved to look at the photos on his bookshelf, pictures of Mia at various ages, a few of Daniel with his mother, one faded photo of his father in front of the garage. "Is this your dad?" she asked. "Yeah, taken about a year before he died." Daniel joined her, looking at the photo with the familiar ache of old grief. He built that garage from nothing, worked 16-hour days to make it successful. I think about him every time I open the bay doors. You honor his legacy. That matters. Some days I wonder if I'm honoring it or just stuck in it. Daniel hadn't meant to say that out loud, but somehow Lena drew out his deepest truths. Those aren't mutually exclusive. You can honor where you came from and still want something different. Before Daniel could explore that thought, Mia appeared in her pajamas, her hair still damp, her favorite stuffed elephant tucked under her arm. "I'm ready for stories," she announced, then looked at Lena hopefully. "Will you read to me?" Lena glanced at Daniel, uncertain. "If your dad says it's okay." "I don't mind," Daniel said. "But Mia, Lena might not." "I'd love to," Lena interrupted. They settled on Mia's bed. Daniel on one side, Lena on the other, Mia in the middle with her elephant. The current book was about a girl detective solving mysteries in her neighborhood, and Mia was deeply invested in the plot. Lena read with different voices for each character, making Mia giggle and Daniel smile despite himself. When she finished this chapter, Mia yawned and snuggled deeper into her pillows. "One more chapter?" she asked hopefully. "Not tonight, Bug. You've got school tomorrow." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Sleep tight." "Night, Daddy. Night, Lena." Mia's eyes were already closing. This was the best day ever. Out in the living room, Lena collected her purse, checking her phone for the first time all evening. Her expression tightened as she scrolled through what looked like dozens of notifications. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked. "My assistant is having a minor panic attack about the board meeting. Apparently one of the directors is pushing to change the agenda, and Marcus thinks I should fly back tonight to prepare." Lena typed out a quick response. "I'm telling him it can wait until tomorrow afternoon. You don't have to stay on my account." "I'm staying on my account because I want to." Lena pocketed her phone. "Besides, I haven't made my case yet." "What case?" "The case for why this could work. Us, I mean." Lena moved closer, and Daniel's heart rate kicked up. "You think the logistics are impossible. I think they're just complicated." "Complicated is underselling it. You live 3 hours away. You run a company. I have a daughter and a business that requires me to be here. So we figure it out. I can work remotely some days. You could visit the city occasionally, bring Mia, make it fun for her. We text, video call, make time for each other however we can. And when that's not enough? When you get tired of splitting your time, of having a boyfriend who can't just drop everything to be with you? Is that what we'd be? Boyfriend and girlfriend?" Lena's lips curved. "Seems very high school." "You know what I mean." "I do. And I also know that nothing worth having comes easy." Lena closed the distance between them, her hand finding his. "Danny, I've spent 15 years achieving everything I set out to accomplish. Built a company from scratch, proved everyone wrong, made more money than I know what to do with. And none of it means anything if I'm doing it alone." "You're not alone. You have employees, friends. I have colleagues and networking contacts. That's not the same thing." Lena's voice cracked slightly. "I want what I saw tonight. What you and Mia have. I want someone to cook dinner for. I want bedtime stories and homework help and all the mundane, beautiful things that make up a life." Daniel's resistance was crumbling, his logical arguments falling apart in the face of her raw honesty. "What if I'm not enough? What if my small-town life doesn't measure up to what you're used to?" "What if it's exactly what I need?" Lena countered. "Lena, what if I'm tired of fancy galas and five-star restaurants and conversations that never go deeper than quarterly earnings? What if I want greasy diners and garage apartments and a man who fixes strangers' cars for free because it's the right thing to do?" "Elena, I'm scared too," she interrupted. "Terrified, actually. I'm scared I'll disappoint you, that I won't be good enough for Mia, that I'll mess this up because I don't know how to be in a relationship that's real instead of transactional. But I'm willing to try if you are." Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the CEO or the runaway daughter or the ghost of Elena Martinez. He saw Lana, complicated and vulnerable, and standing in his living room asking for a chance. "I'm scared of Mia getting hurt," he said quietly. "She's already attached to you. If this doesn't work, if you decide it's too hard or not worth it, it'll break her heart." "And yours?" "Yeah, mine too."
Lena stepped closer, close enough that Daniel could smell her perfume, see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes.
"Then we don't let it fail. We work at it. We communicate. We make it a priority. Just like you prioritize Mia and I prioritize my company. We add each other to that list of non-negotiables. You make it sound simple. It won't be simple, but it'll be worth it."
Lena's hand came up to his face, her touch gentle. "I found you after 15 years, Danny. I'm not walking away without fighting for this." Daniel covered her hand with his own, leaning into her touch. "I don't know how to do this. The last relationship I had ended with Jessica leaving town and me raising Mia alone. I don't have a great track record. Neither do I. I've dated men who wanted my money, my connections, my last name. Men who saw me as a trophy or a business opportunity." Lena's thumb brushed his cheek. "You're the first person in 15 years who's looked at me like I'm just Elena.
Just a woman you might like, independent of everything else. I do like you. That's what scares me."
Good scared or bad scared?" "I don't know yet." Lena smiled, sad and hopeful at once. "Can I kiss you? Or is that moving too fast?" Daniel's answer was to close the remaining distance between them, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was both familiar and brand new. She tasted like wine and memory and possibility. Her hand slid to his shoulders, his found her waist, and for a moment everything else fell away. The fear, the logistics, the impossible distance between their lives. When they pulled apart, Lena was breathing hard, her forehead resting against his. "Okay," she whispered. That answered some questions. "Yeah? Definitely still chemistry." She pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. "So what do we do now?" Daniel took a breath, making the decision before he could talk himself out of it. "We try. Long distance, complicated schedules, all of it. We figure it out as we go." "Really? Really? But I need you to promise something." "Anything. If it gets to be too much, if the commute or the complications or having to schedule time together starts feeling like a burden instead of something you want, you tell me. No disappearing, no slow fade. We talk about it like adults." "I promise." Lena kissed him again, softer this time. "And you promise the same. If I'm not meeting Mia's needs, if I'm disrupting your life too much, you tell me." "Deal." They stood there in his small living room, holding each other, both of them knowing they were making a leap without a net. But for the first time in 15 years, Daniel felt like maybe the risk was worth it. "I should go," Lena said eventually. "Let you get some sleep." "Yeah." Daniel didn't let go. "What time are you leaving tomorrow?" "After lunch? I want to say goodbye to Mia properly, if that's okay." She'd like that. At the door, Lena turned back. "Danny, thank you for giving me a chance, for trusting me with Mia, for not letting your fear win." "My fear's still there," Daniel admitted. "I'm just choosing to ignore it for now. That's all any of us can do." After she left, Daniel cleaned up the wine glasses, checked on Mia one more time, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Made it back to the inn. Thank you for tonight, for everything." He replied, "Sleep well. See you tomorrow." Tomorrow she'd leave. Tomorrow they'd start this impossible long-distance attempt at a relationship. Tomorrow, everything would get complicated. But tonight, Daniel let himself feel hopeful. Let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, some love stories got second chances. And maybe he deserved one too. The next morning brought rain, the cold, persistent kind that turned riverside streets into rivers of autumn leaves and made Daniel's garage feel even smaller and darker than usual. He worked through the morning on autopilot, replacing brake pads and rotating tires while his mind counted down the hours until Lena would leave. She'd texted at 7. "Can I take you and Mia to lunch before I go? Joe's Diner?" He'd replied, "She'd love that. Noon work?" Now it was 11:30, and Daniel was washing grease off his hands for the third time,
trying to make himself presentable. Harold wandered in just as Daniel was giving up on getting the oil stain out from under his thumbnail. "You're closing for lunch again," Harold observed. "That's twice this week. Must be serious." "She's leaving today, going back to the city." "And you're letting her go?" Harold leaned against the workbench, his weathered face skeptical. "That doesn't sound like a man who's figured things out."
"Oh, we're going to try the long-distance thing." Even saying it out loud felt surreal. "Long distance," Harold snorted. "That what they're calling it these days?" "What would you call it?" "Complicated. Difficult. Probably doomed." Harold held up a hand before Daniel could protest. "But your mother tried to tell me the same thing when I proposed to my wife 40 years ago. Said I was too old, she was too young, we'd never make it work." "Sometimes the complicated things are worth fighting for." Daniel grabbed his jacket. "I'm not fighting for anything yet. We're just seeing what happens." "Uh-huh." Harold's expression said he didn't believe that for a second. "Well, good luck with seeing what happens. Try not to mess it up." At Mia's school, Daniel found his daughter waiting with her backpack already on, bouncing with barely contained excitement. "Is Lena really taking us to lunch?" she asked the moment he appeared. "She really is." "And then she has to leave?" "Yeah, Bug. She has to go back to work." Mia's face fell. "But she just got here. Can't she stay longer?" Daniel crouched down to her level. "Lena has a big important job in the city. She has people counting on her, but she's coming back to visit, and maybe sometimes we can visit her." "In the city?" Mia's eyes widened. "Could we really?" "Maybe. We'll see." They walked to Joe's diner hand in hand, Mia chattering about her day despite the rain. Lena was already there, sitting in a corner booth, her laptop open in front of her. She looked up when they entered, and the smile that crossed her face was genuine and warm and made Daniel's chest tight. "There's my favorite second grader," Lena said, closing her laptop as Mia slid into the booth beside her. "I'm in first grade," Mia corrected, "but I'm advanced for my age." "I can tell." Lena's eyes met Daniel's over Mia's head, and something passed between them. Acknowledgement of what was coming, determination to make these last hours count. They ordered lunch. Burgers for Daniel and Mia, a salad for Lena that Mia immediately declared boring, and fell into easy conversation. Mia dominated the discussion with a story about her friend Emma's upcoming birthday party, which apparently involved both a bounce house and a petting zoo. "That sounds amazing," Lena said. "When is it?" 2 weeks, on Saturday." Mia looked at Daniel hopefully. "Can we go shopping for a present after school tomorrow?" "Sure, Bug." "Will you be back by then, Lena?" Mia asked. "You could come to the party with us." Lena glanced at Daniel, uncertain. "I don't know if I can make it back in 2 weeks, sweetheart. I have a lot of meetings scheduled." "Oh." Mia's disappointment was palpable. "That's okay. I understand." But she clearly didn't, not really. She was 7 years old, and 2 weeks might as well be forever. Daniel saw Lena register that too, saw guilt flash across her face. "Tell you what," Lena said. "I can't promise the party, but how about I video call you that day? You can show me your outfit and tell me all about it." "Really?" Mia perked up. "Like FaceTime." "Exactly like FaceTime." "Okay," Mia returned to her burger, mollified. After lunch, they walked Mia back to school together. At the crosswalk, Mia hugged Lena fiercely. "I'm going to miss you," Mia said into Lena's shoulder. "I'll miss you too." Lena's voice was thick. "But I'll call soon, okay? And I'll see you again before you know it." "Promise?" "I promise." Daniel walked Mia across the street, watching her join her friends before heading back inside. When he returned to where Lena waited, she was wiping her eyes. "I didn't expect that to be so hard," she admitted. "Welcome to parenting. Everything's harder than you expect." They walked back toward Main Street in silence, the rain letting up to a drizzle. Lena's Mercedes was parked in front of the inn, packed and ready to go. "I should hit the road," she said, but made no move toward the car. "Traffic's going to be terrible if I wait too long." "Yeah." Daniel shoved his hands in his pockets. "Drive safe." "Danny!" Lena turned to face him fully. "Are we really doing this? Or are we both going to get in our heads about it the second I leave?" "I don't know. Probably both." Daniel managed a smile. but we're still going to try. Okay. Lena stepped closer, her hands finding his. Then I need to say something before I lose my nerve. What? I'm falling in love with you, again, or still, or maybe I never stopped. I don't know. But these 4 days with you and Mia, this is what I want. Not occasionally, not as a break from my real life, but as my actual life. Lena's words came fast, tumbling over each other. I know that's insane. I know we just reconnected, but I've spent 15 years wondering what if, and now I know. You're my what if, Danny Reed. You always were. Daniel's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. Elena, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. So when you're lying in bed tonight wondering if this is worth it, if I'm serious, you'll remember that I put it all out there. I'm all in, even if it's terrifying. Daniel pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist, his forehead resting against hers. I'm falling too. That's what scares me. I've got Mia to protect, and if I let you in, really let you in, and it doesn't work, it'll break both of us. Then we don't let it not work. Lena's hands came up to frame his face. We fight for this. We make time. We communicate. We show up for each other however we can. What if it's not enough? What if it is? Daniel kissed her, there on Main Street in the rain, not caring who saw or what they'd say. When they broke apart, Lena was crying, and Daniel realized he was too. Call me when you get home, he said, so I know you made it safe. I will. Lena pulled out her keys, then hesitated. 2 weeks. I'll come back in 2 weeks for Emma's birthday party. I'll clear my schedule, tell my assistant it's non-negotiable. I want to be there for Mia. You don't have to. I want to. For her and for me. For us. Lena opened her car door. 2 weeks, Danny, and then we start figuring this out for real. Daniel watched her drive away, her Mercedes disappearing around the bend in the road. He stood there long after she was gone, rain soaking through his jacket, feeling the weight of possibility and fear in equal measure. The next 2 weeks were harder than Daniel anticipated. Work consumed his days. The garage was busier than usual with everyone getting their cars ready for winter. Mia's evenings were packed with homework, soccer practice, and the elaborate preparations for Emma's party. But every spare moment, Daniel's mind drifted to Lena. They texted constantly. Good morning messages and good night check-ins. Photos of Mia's latest art project. Screenshots of Lena's meetings that had run too long. Video calls when they could manage them, usually late at night after Mia was asleep, both of them exhausted, but unwilling to hang up. Tell me about your day, Lena would say, and Daniel would describe oil changes and transmission rebuilds, the mundane details of his small-town life. And she'd listen like it mattered, like his world was as interesting as hers. In return, she told him about board meetings and product launches, the stress of managing 200 employees, the constant pressure to grow and scale and never slow down. I'm tired, she admitted one night, 10 days after leaving Riverside. Not physically, just tired of performing, tired of being Lena Whitmore, CEO, instead of just Lena. Then just be Lena, Daniel said, at least with me. That's why I need you. You let me be both. But the distance was taking its toll. Lena missed Mia's soccer game because of a client emergency. Daniel had to cancel a video call because Mrs. Patterson's car broke down at 9 p.m. and he was the only mechanic she trusted. The logistics they'd promised to figure out felt increasingly impossible. On Thursday of the second week, Daniel's doubts crystallized during a conversation with Harold. She coming back this weekend? Harold asked, wiping oil from a dipstick. That's the plan. But I don't know how sustainable this is. She's got a company to run. I've got Mia and the garage. We're trying to build something on stolen moments and video calls. Your mother and I lived apart for 6 months when we were first married, Harold said. She was finishing nursing school in the city. I was here running the garage with your dad, hardest 6 months of my life. How'd you make it work? We decided we were more important than the inconvenience, simple as that. Harold set down his tools. Question is, are you and this woman more important than the complications? Daniel didn't have an answer. Friday morning, Mia woke up asking if Lena was really coming to Emma's party. She said she would, Bug.
But what if she can't? What if work is too busy? Then we'll be disappointed, but we'll understand. Daniel helped Mia into her jacket. Sometimes adults have responsibilities they can't get out of. You always show up for me, Mia pointed out. You came to my soccer game even when Mrs. Patterson's car was broken. That's different. You're my daughter. You come first, always. Doesn't Lena want to come first too? The question haunted Daniel all morning. Did Lena want to be a priority, or was she content being fit into the margins of his life? And more importantly, could he handle being fit into the margins of hers? At noon, his phone rang. Lena's name on the screen made his stomach flip. Hey, he answered. Everything okay? No. Her voice was strained. Danny, I'm so sorry. The board meeting I pushed to next week got moved to tomorrow. Emergency session about a potential acquisition. I tried to reschedule, but 3 of the directors can't do any other time, and if I don't show up, you can't make it to the party. Daniel's heart sank. I'm so sorry. I know I promised Mia. I know I said I'd be there. Lena sounded close to tears. I tried everything. I offered to video conference and to send my COO, but they're voting on something that requires my presence. If I don't go, I could lose control of my own company. Daniel closed his eyes, fighting disappointment. I understand. Work comes first sometimes. It's not that it comes first. It's that I don't have a choice. The frustration in Lena's voice was palpable. This is what I was afraid of, Danny, that I'd let you and Mia down because my life is too complicated to fit into normal schedules. We'll manage. Mia will be disappointed, but she'll understand. Will she? She's 7. She doesn't understand corporate politics or fiduciary responsibility. She just knows I promised and broke that promise. Lena took a shaky breath. And what about next time? And the time after that? How many times can I disappoint her before she stops trusting me? Elena, we knew this wouldn't be easy. Maybe it's not supposed to be this hard. The words came out bitter. Maybe the universe is telling us we're forcing something that doesn't fit. Daniel's chest tightened. Is that what you think? Silence stretched between them. Finally, Lena said quietly, I don't know what I think anymore. I just know I can't keep hurting the people I care about because I'm trying to be in 2 places at once. So what are you saying? I don't know. I need to think. Can we talk after the board meeting when I'm not so overwhelmed? Yeah, sure. Daniel's voice came out hollow. Good luck tomorrow. After they hung up, Daniel sat in his garage staring at his phone. This was what he'd been afraid of from the beginning, that the reality of their lives wouldn't match the fantasy. That love, no matter how genuine, couldn't overcome logistics. That evening, he had to tell Mia that Lena couldn't make it to the party. Oh, Mia's face fell. Okay. She's really sorry, Bug. She has an important work thing she can't miss. I know, it's fine. But Mia's voice was small, and she didn't ask any follow-up questions. That night, after Mia was asleep, Daniel sat alone in his living room with a beer he wasn't really drinking. His phone stayed silent. No text from Lena, no call, nothing. The absence felt louder than any argument. He thought about texting her, thought about calling, but what would he say? That he was scared? That watching Mia's disappointment had confirmed all his worst fears? That maybe they should quit before they hurt each other more? His phone finally buzzed at 11 p.m. But it wasn't Lena. It was Sarah from the coffee shop. Just heard the wildest thing from my cousin who works at the Riverside Inn. Thought you should know. Daniel frowned, typing back, know what? Lena Whitmore just checked back in. Room 7. Same one she had before. Daniel stared at the message, his heart hammering. Lena was in Riverside? But she'd said she couldn't make it. She'd said... His phone rang. Lena's name. Danny? Her voice was breathless. I'm at the inn. Can you come over? I need to talk to you. It's 11 p.m. Mia's asleep. I can't just... Please, I drove 3 hours to get here. I need to say this in person. Is everything okay? I don't know yet. That depends on you. Daniel's mind raced. Mrs. Chen lived 2 doors down. He could ask her to listen for Mia, just for an hour. It was late. It was probably a terrible idea, but something in Lena's voice pulled at him. "Give me 20 minutes." Mrs. Chen agreed without question, probably sensing the urgency. Daniel drove the 3 blocks to the inn. Walking would have taken too long, and took the stairs to the second floor 2 at a time. Lena opened the door before he could knock. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back messily, no makeup, wearing jeans and an old university sweatshirt he vaguely recognized. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Daniel stepped inside and she closed the door behind him. "You want to tell me why you're here instead of preparing for your board meeting?" "I quit." Daniel's world tilted. "You what?" "I quit, resigned, walked out of the office 3 hours ago and got in my car." Lena started pacing the small room. "My assistant thinks I've had a breakdown. My board will probably try to fight it, but I don't care anymore." "Elena, slow down. What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that I built a company I don't even like anymore. I'm talking about spending the last 2 weeks miserable every time I had to choose between work and calling you. I'm talking about breaking a promise to a 7-year-old and realizing I'd become exactly what I swore I'd never be. Someone who prioritizes money and power over people who matter." Daniel caught her hand, stopping her pacing. "You didn't quit your company. You can't have. That's your whole life." "No, it was my whole life. That's the problem." Lena's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "These past 2 weeks, I kept telling myself the distance was temporary, that once we figured out a rhythm, it would get easier. But it won't, Danny. My job will always demand more. There will always be another emergency meeting, another crisis, another reason I can't be where I want to be." "So you quit? Just like that?" "Not just like that. I thought about it. A lot." Lena pulled her hands free, moving to the window. "I thought about what I told Mia at dinner, that you can do anything if you work hard and never give up. And I realized I've been working hard at the wrong things. Building a company I don't love. Chasing success that doesn't make me happy. Ignoring what I actually want because I was too stubborn to admit my father might have been right about one thing." "What's that?" "That there's more to life than work." Lena turned to face him. "I don't need to be a CEO to be successful. I don't need an $800 million company to prove I'm worthy. What I need is to wake up in the morning and actually want to live my life instead of just manage it." Daniel's head was spinning. "Okay, but quitting seems extreme. You could step back, hire someone to run day-to-day operations." "I don't want to step back. I want out." Lena's voice was firm. "I've already talked to my COO. She's more than capable of taking over. Better than me, honestly. She actually likes the corporate politics I can't stand." "And what will you do?" "I don't know yet. I have some ideas, but that's not why I drove 3 hours tonight." Lena crossed the room, standing directly in front of him. "I came to ask if you meant it when you said you were falling for me. Because if you did, I need to know if there's room in your life for me. Not as a weekend visitor or a video call, as someone who's actually here." Daniel felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "You want to move to Riverside?" "I want to be where you are, where Mia is, where I can actually build the life I want instead of the one I thought I was supposed to have." Lena's hands found his. "I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I also know I've spent 15 years wondering what if, and I'm done wondering. I want to find out." "Elena, you can't just uproot your entire life for me, for us. What if it doesn't work? What if you get here and realize small-town life isn't what you want?" "Then I'll have tried. I'll have taken the chance instead of letting fear make my decisions." Lena's grip tightened. "But I don't think that's what will happen. I think I'll wake up in a place where I can breathe, where success means making dinner with people I love instead of closing another deal, where I matter because of who I am, not what I've built." Daniel wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the logical flaws in her plan, but looking at her face, determined and vulnerable and so completely certain, he couldn't find the words. "What about Mia?" he asked quietly. "If you move here, she'll get even more attached. And if you change your mind—" "I won't change my mind." Lena's voice was fierce. "Danny, I watched Mia's face when you told her I couldn't make the party. I saw how hard she tried to hide her disappointment, And I realized I never want to be the person who lets her down again. I want to be the person who shows up, who keeps promises, who earns her trust by being there. That's a big commitment. I know, and I'm not asking to be her mother or step in where I don't belong. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of her life, part of your life, whatever that looks like. Daniel pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her, his face buried in her hair. She smelled like expensive shampoo and the rain she'd driven through to get here, and she felt solid and real and terrifying. I'm scared, he admitted into her shoulder. Me too. Lena's arms tightened around him. But I'm more scared of not trying, of looking back in another 15 years and wondering what if one more time. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other while Daniel's mind raced through possibilities and obstacles and logistics. Finally, he pulled back enough to see her face. Okay, he said, but we do this carefully. No rushing. You get a place of your own first, not here with me and Mia. We date like normal people. We give Mia time to adjust. And if at any point you realize this isn't what you want, you tell me immediately. I can do that. Lena smiled through her tears. Though I should probably warn you, I've never dated like normal people. I don't know what that looks like. It looks like dinner on Tuesdays, coffee on Saturday mornings, movie nights where Mia falls asleep halfway through and we have to carry her to bed. Daniel traced her cheek with his thumb. It looks boring and mundane and absolutely nothing like your old life. Perfect, Lena whispered. When do we start? How about tomorrow? There's a birthday party at 2 p.m. I know someone who'd be really happy if you showed up. Lena's face lit up. I thought you'd never ask. The next morning, Daniel woke Mia gently. Bug, I have a surprise for you. Mia rolled over, rubbing her eyes. What kind of surprise? The kind where Lena's in town and wants to take you shopping for Emma's birthday present, if that's okay with you. Mia sat up so fast she nearly headbutted him. Really? She came back? She really did. Her meeting got canceled and she drove here last night. Can we go see her right now? Daniel laughed. How about we eat breakfast first? Then we'll meet her at the store at 9. Mia was dressed and ready in record time, practically vibrating with excitement. At the store, Lena was waiting by the toy section, and Mia ran straight into her arms. You came back, Mia said, hugging her tight. I promised, didn't I? Lena caught Daniel's eye over Mia's head. And I always keep my promises. They spent the morning shopping for Emma's present. Mia eventually settled on an art kit after much deliberation, and then got ice cream despite it being barely 10 a.m. Lena and Daniel sat on a bench watching Mia chase pigeons, their shoulders touching, fingers intertwined. I meant what I said last night, Lena said quietly, about staying, about building a life here. I know you did, but we're still taking it slow. Slow is good. Slow I can do. Lena squeezed his hand. Though, fair warning, I've already been looking at rental properties. There's a cottage on the edge of town that's available. 2 bedrooms, small yard, walking distance to your garage. You work fast. 15 years is long enough to wait. Lena turned to face him. I'm ready to start living, Danny. Really living. And I want to do it here, with you and Mia, if you'll have me. Daniel kissed her, there in the morning sunshine with Mia giggling in the background and half of Riverside probably watching. And for the first time in 15 years, he let himself believe in second chances. Emma's birthday party was chaotic and loud and perfect. Mia introduced Lena to all her friends as my dad's girlfriend who's really smart and knows about computers, which made Lena tear up and Daniel laugh. They ate cake and watched kids bounce themselves into exhaustion and helped clean up afterward. That evening, after Mia was asleep, Daniel and Lena sat on his couch, making plans. Lena would transition out of her company over the next month. She'd find a place in Riverside, something small and manageable. She had ideas for what to do next, consulting for small businesses, maybe teaching coding to kids, using her skills in ways that mattered without consuming her whole life. I have money saved, she said, enough that I don't need to work right away. I can take time to figure out what I actually want to do. That's a luxury most people don't have. I know, and I'm grateful for it. But more than that, I'm grateful for this. Lena gestured around his small apartment. For you? For Mia? For a chance to be somewhere I actually want to be. 3 weeks later, Lena signed a lease on the cottage she'd found. It was small and needed work, but it had good bones and a view of the mountains and enough space for her to set up a home office. Daniel and Mia helped her move in, Mia insisting on arranging Lena's books by color because it looks prettier that way. The town gossip was relentless at first. Whispers about the CEO who gave up everything for a small-town mechanic. But Lena handled it with grace, showing up at Joe's diner for breakfast, shopping at Linda's grocery, becoming a fixture at Mia's soccer games. Slowly, she stopped being that CEO and became just Lena, the woman who dated Daniel Reed and was learning to code with the kids at the library on Saturday mornings. 2 months after moving to Riverside, Lena started a small consulting business, helping local companies modernize their systems. She charged reasonable rates and made house calls, and word spread quickly that she was brilliant and patient and actually cared about helping people succeed. "This is what I was meant to do," she told Daniel one evening, curled up on his couch after Mia's bedtime. "Not running a massive company, just helping people, one business at a time." "You're happy," Daniel observed. "I'm happy," Lena confirmed. "Are you?" Daniel thought about his life now versus 6 months ago. The loneliness he'd accepted as normal. The routine that had felt safe but empty. The part of him that had shut down after Elena disappeared and never fully reopened. "Yeah," he said honestly. "I'm happy. Terrified sometimes, but happy." "What are you terrified of?" "That I'll wake up and this will all be a dream. That you'll realize what you gave up and resent me for it. That I'm not enough to make this worth it." The fears spilled out before Daniel could stop them. Lena shifted to face him fully. "Danny, I didn't give up anything. I traded a life I didn't want for one I do. That's not a sacrifice, that's a choice." She took his hands. "And you are enough. You've always been enough. That's what took me so long to understand." 6 months after Lena moved to Riverside, Daniel took her and Mia on a drive up to the mountain highway where it all started. They parked at the exact spot where Lena's car had broken down, where Daniel had stopped to help a stranger and found his future instead. "This is where you fixed my car," Lena said, looking around. "Where everything changed." "Where I didn't recognize you," Daniel added. "Best thing that could have happened. If you'd recognized me right away, we would have been too busy dealing with the past to figure out the present." Lena smiled at the memory. "Besides, I got to fall in love with you all over again, as Danny, the mechanic, instead of Danny, the security guard. And I got to fall for Lena instead of Elena." Daniel pulled her close. "Though you're both pretty great." "Daddy, can we go look at the view?" Mia called from where she was peering over the guardrail. "Careful, Bug. Stay back from the edge." They stood together at the overlook, the three of them, looking at the valley spreading below. Riverside was a small cluster of buildings in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys, the river catching the afternoon light. "It's beautiful," Lena said softly. "It's home," Daniel replied. Mia tugged on Lena's hand. "Are you going to stay forever?" Lena knelt down to Mia's level. "I can't promise forever, sweetheart. Nobody can. But I can promise I'm not going anywhere unless you and your dad want me to. And I can promise I'll always try my best to be here when you need me." "That's good enough for me," Mia declared, then turned to Daniel. "Can Lena come to my school's parent day next month? Sarah's bringing her stepmom, and I want to bring Lena." Daniel looked at Lena, seeing the emotion in her eyes. The way the simple request had clearly meant everything. "If Lena wants to," he said. "I'd be honored," Lena managed, her voice thick. A year after their reunion, Daniel closed the garage early on a Tuesday and took Lena back to the same mountain overlook. Mia was at soccer practice, Mrs. Chen on pickup duty, giving them a rare afternoon alone. "Why are we here?" Lena asked as they walked to the guardrail. "Because this is where we started over, where we got our second chance." Daniel turned to face her, his heart hammering. "And I wanted to be here when I asked if you'd want to make it permanent." He pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a simple diamond ring. Nothing flashy or expensive, just honest and real, like everything between them. "Lena Whitmore, formerly Elena Martinez, will you marry me?"
Lena stared at the ring, then at him, tears streaming down her face. You're serious? Completely.
I know we said we'd take it slow, and we have. But I also know I don't want to spend another day without you being officially part of this family. Mia already considers you hers. She told me yesterday she wishes you were her real mom, whatever that means to an 8-year-old. And I want you, permanently, if you'll have us. Yes. Lena threw her arms around him. Yes, absolutely yes. Daniel slipped the ring on her finger and they stood there holding each other on the spot where everything had changed, where a breakdown had led to a breakthrough, where 15 years of searching had finally ended. I love you, Lena whispered. I loved you when you were Danny the security guard. I loved you when you were Daniel the mechanic who stopped to help a stranger. And I love you now, exactly as you are. I love you too, both of you, Elena and Lena, past and present, all of it. They told Mia that night over her favorite dinner, pancakes, because some traditions were worth keeping. She'd screamed with excitement, demanded to see the ring 17 times, and immediately started planning the wedding with the intense focus only an 8-year-old could muster. Can I be the flower girl? Can we have a chocolate cake? Can my whole soccer team come? Can we get a puppy? Yes, maybe, and we'll talk about it, Daniel answered in order, laughing. 6 months later, they got married in Riverside Park on a perfect autumn afternoon. It was small, just friends, Mia's soccer team, Harold and Sarah, and everyone from town who'd watched their story unfold. Lena wore a simple white dress, Daniel wore his best suit, and Mia wore a princess dress she'd picked out herself, complete with sparkly shoes. They exchanged vows under the same trees where they'd had their first real conversation after reuniting, where Lena had told Daniel the truth about her past, and he'd chosen to give her a chance anyway. I promise to choose you, Daniel said, his voice steady despite the emotion. Every day, through complications and logistics and whatever life throws at us. I promise to see you, all of you, and love every version. I promise to show up, Lena replied, tears running freely. To keep my promises to you and Mia. To build a life that matters more than success. To never disappear again, even when things get hard. I'm here, Danny. I'm home. When they kissed, Mia cheered louder than anyone, and Daniel thought about the impossible journey that had led them here. A girl who ran from her father's control. A boy who gave up his dreams to care for his mother. 15 years of separate lives, and wondering what if. And finally, on a random Tuesday, on a random highway, fate had given them another chance. Sometimes love didn't arrive on time. Sometimes it broke down, got lost, took the scenic route through heartbreak and disappointment and years of wondering. But sometimes, if you were brave enough to stop when someone needed help, patient enough to let them find their way, and willing enough to believe in second chances, love found you exactly when you were ready. Daniel Reed had spent 15 years building a small, safe life. And then Lena Whitmore had appeared on a mountain highway, and small had become extraordinary, safe had become worth risking, and life had become finally and completely enough. More than enough. Everything.